I'd like to call the Village of Wolverine Lake Council meeting for Wednesday, April 10th to order. Please stand for the pledge of flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Woodruff,
Here.
Mont,
Here.
Duff, Mallett,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
York,
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
We have heard from Mr. Duff, and he is out of town on business
I'd like to
currently.
make
so-
a motion to excuse Mr. Duff.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by,
Dumont.
Dumont. Dumont.
Okay.
Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Additions to the business and approval of the agenda.
I do have an addition to add for the discussion to approve a purchase policy that was passed by the charter amendment in 2018, that we need to establish a new threshold for purchasing, and I would like to add that as agenda item 11M, I believe.
Okay. And I don't think there's anything else.
Mr. President, I'd like to see if we could just do a little switch around here. If we could bring the item J, the Veterans Memorial Update, under G, make it G1, I guess. It's all part of the same conversation.
I don't see a problem with that, I guess.
All right, and the other item would be the presentation of Oak Island landscaping. I wanted the council board to know that there was a meeting of the Park and Rec Capital Expenditures Committee. In the packets that I distributed by PDF and then have in front of you, it was discussed in detail. Of course, Mr. Smith is a member of that committee. Mark was the chair of our Park and Recs, and the gentleman across, the liaison, were all in that conversation. We had a great presentation from the Oak Island group. And this is all budgeted funds, so everybody knows going into it that, I guess, in one sense, it probably belongs under the consent agenda, but where council would certainly want to take a relook at the packet and how it was presented, and in essence, ask any questions. We asked the Oak Island Association to come forward for the public meeting. That's the last, I think, that I wanted to make comment on.
Okay, we can comment that on 9B, right?
Yes, it's on 9B.
Okay. Okay,
So approval of the agenda.
with that, we'll move for approval of the agenda. Anybody?
So moved.
To do what? I didn't hear you.
The agenda.
Approval of the agenda, sorry, Ed.
The consent agenda or the?
The agenda. The agenda, not the consent.
There's a few things I wanted
Okay.
to discuss on the consent agenda.
Yeah, we're just approving the agenda right
Okay.
now. So that was a motion by Dumont, second by Mr. Malik. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Correspondence and information, we've got a whole bunch of that tonight. Most of it has to do with, well, Linda Champagne brought up a memo about the official ballot for the school tax bill, and I guess we really don't have to do a whole lot with that. She was just wondering about how the whole millage thing worked out, and the way the gentleman last month mentioned it was gonna be a consolidation, and it was gonna actually be a decrease in millage fees, so. That's what our understanding was on it. So, aside from that, I don't think there was really anything else, was there?
Just dog licenses, just make sure to get them.
They go up, what was it?
After, beginning June 2nd.
Right, June 3rd, they went
It'll go
up
up.
officially.
So please get them by June 1st to pay the normal fee.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the first call to the public. An opportunity for public to address council on agenda items only. I guess we'll, Monique?
Monique McGee, 814 Wolverine Drive. I'm not sure whether it's on the agenda specifically. I don't have one, but I think it was. I'm just here to speak very briefly about the disbanding of the historical team. As the
It is.
I
It
think
is
the
on the
only member,
agenda.
maybe Jerry's here. She was also helping us with our work. But basically, the historical team was established right after we celebrated our 50th anniversary here in 2004, and Joanne Sullivan was one of the key members of that, of the founding of that organization or that team. And so was, I just want to mention these people because many of them aren't with us any longer. One of them was Jean Mitkowski, also John Scott, and Joanne Sullivan, who is with us, but not, she's an honorary resident, but is no longer an actual resident of the village. And they were the key members of the team initially, and then brought in some other people like myself. And the goal was to organize, I think during the planning for the 50th anniversary, it was discovered that, you know, the historical documents of our village were not perhaps in the best order that they could be. So the goal was to put them into some better order and make them accessible to anybody with interest, or when questions came up, they could be answered more quickly and easily. So I think we've accomplished that. All of us are a little sad to let it go at this point, but we've left the collection, if you will, in a better place than it was, and are happy to disband at this time with the idea that if ever the need were to arise to have something looked into really deeply, you know, I would step in and maybe gather a few people that know something about it to help me pull those items together. Anyway, that was all I really wanted to say, and also, as I always do if I stand up here, which isn't very often, I would like to thank all of the people that are serving on council. I know it's a very, it's a real service to our community. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom? That'd be great if you could. Or we might have a revolving. Just getting more every day.
Tom Mersch, 265 Oak Island. I'd just like to have the opportunity to, since I haven't seen what Oak Island landscaping and improvements are going to be, after the presentation, I'd like to comment if it's the way that it would affect me.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. Anybody else?
Dean McQuaid, 207 Oak Island Drive. I'd like to comment about our wonderful, not so wonderful paving job that was done on the island. If you go on Oak View, you can see on Oak View, they actually ground down the road and actually put the correct aggregate at the sides of the road to protect the road. Our road was not done that way. We have large aggregate, which flies all over the place. We also already have holes in the road, cracks in the road. At the bridge, there is decaying areas, there's ponding. We put curves going up the island, which were never there. We've already had people trip over those curves that were put in because there was no backfill behind. It was not appropriately done. And we want to make sure that all these issues are corrected. Many pictures, I took more than a number of pictures, so I'm sure John Scott has some pictures that he has shared. And if you guys have had the ability or have gone up and seen the road job, it looks like a 2-year-old did it. Oak, our canal did theirs on their own, and their road is awesome. There's no cracking, there's no settling, there's no nothing. We also covered over people's driveway pavement with asphalt. So they're not quite sure why we did that. Usually you grind down and make it level with their stuff, but we covered up almost a foot of some concrete on some people's drives. So please want to make sure that everybody looks at that and we hold the contractor accountable, because if we save some money, we didn't save enough. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Oak Island Drive.
Mr. Renwick?
Dave Renwick, 685 Amenia. Good to see a new president, a couple of new faces. Glad you're here. I've spoken on this for the last 6 years. If I bore some of you, I don't apologize for it because it needs addressing. I see in the newspaper that we've got $728,000 to put into the roads, which under ordinary circumstances would be a wonderful thing. We had $200,000 to put into a weed harvester a few years back. We've had money to put into pocket parks. I sat up there. I know the pressures, I know the pains. Where did that money come from? When we wanted to do something over a long term, we'd create what was called a rolling fund. We'd save for it. We'd let the people know about it well in advance. Where is this money coming from? It's coming from the general fund. And how, not just where, but how did the general fund grow to the size that we can take $250,000, $750,000 out at a time, when we shouldn't really have more than $600,000 in there to begin with? And that takes us in the circular route right back to the garbage tax, the garbage fee, whatever you want to call it. Council basically gifted the village on the order of $300,000 a year as a tax rebate, basically. When that garbage fee went in, people don't realize it, but fee, tax, whatever the heck you want to call it, and I know technically it's a fee, but it's relieving the tax burden on the village, so it's really kind of very closely associated with a tax. And if you used it as a pressure valve, if you used it to keep us at about a $600,000 level in the general fund, if you watched every year and adjusted it downward rather than upward, that would be one thing. But when council's been basically banking money every year since that thing went into effect, there's something wrong with the garbage tax, period. And you really need to address that before budget time, and hopefully do something about it. It's a temporary fee that's going to be going into its 10th year. That ain't temporary. I don't think it ever was a temporary fee, because if it was temporary, it would have been revisited on a yearly basis, and it wasn't. The only way it got revisited is if some chowderhead like me stood up and mentioned it. The fact is, the first year we had the garbage tax, we didn't need it. There was enough in the general fund to cover it. It could have been presented to the people, it could have been put up to a vote, but it wasn't. Just like this park stuff could have been put up to a vote, but it wasn't. And when we're going to start fixing our roads from the general fund, rather than budgeting for it, which is the way it's supposed to be done, we're not supposed to take money out of the general fund to fix roads. We're supposed to budget for it. There's a big problem. And when we can pull $750,000 out of our butts, there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move along to consideration of approving the following consent agenda. So,
My question is, if we approve the consent agenda, everything in that packet is going to be approved? Or are we going to discuss, Parks and Recreation Board meeting minutes and the Water Management Board meeting minutes?
if you want to pull it out, we can.
Yes,
So you want to remove Parks and Rec Board meeting minutes?
yeah, and Water Management.
Okay. Anybody else? That being said, we need to approve the consent agenda with removal of Parks and Rec Board and the Water Board minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Dumont, second by Malik. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff, Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Yep.
York.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I guess we move to
Discuss this?
discuss it. Discussion on the Water Board minutes or the, we'll go Parks and Rec first, Ed. Go ahead.
Okay, Parks and Rec. Couple of things that I was trying to, let me see where I've got it here. As far as the requests that Parks and Rec has for spending money in the park, I don't have any problem with anything they've suggested except the concession stand. I think it's premature. I look at their agenda, and I don't see anything where a concession stand would be of value. They've got a movie in the park, St. Patrick's Bus, Bunny Lunch, Eastern Market, Tigers Game, Tuesday in the Park, Detroit Zoo, Waterford Oaks, Fall Garage Sale, Fishing Tournament, and Village Festival. I can't visualize wanting to spend that kind of money on something that might or might not be a viable or popular item in the park. If the park gets the activity and it shows that people are coming there, but the only event we have that draws a crowd of people in that park is our corn roast. Now, years back, a couple times, I know once when I was president, maybe both times, we had a circus come in, packed the park, 4 or 5 days, made a lot of money. I'd like to see like maybe Parks and Rec try to get a carnival come in there with rides, kiddie rides and adult rides and stuff like that, to utilize that area. But to build $100 and some $1,000 or $60,000, $80,000 concession stand, for what? Are people going to come there to have lunch? But the rest of it makes, to me, is good common sense, but with the paving we have to do and the other stuff that's involved, I don't see any need at this time to worry about a concession stand. Maybe 3 years down the road or 4 years down the road, but not now.
Well, I think it was in the 5-year plan, or actually the 20-year master plan that we've adopted, right? So that was just one of the items in that list that they were looking at. I don't think we have any concrete costs on those yet either. I mean, it's in discussion. I think the board's looking at what costs would be on it, looking at possible designs. So.
Mr. President, may I interrupt just to say that this discussion maybe is more appropriate under new business item H,
Okay,
because this is just approval of the minutes. So
Right.
that's,
All right,
that makes sense.
so
okay,
we're not going to change what they're,
all right.
what they did in their meeting.
I'll bring it up then.
So that would be perfect.
And then the other thing on the water board, I read the minutes, and
Are you suggesting to move both of these
I
discussions
don't know
into
if the
H?
water,
But-
doesn't appear that there's a discussion item for the
Both of these
water.
were just the minutes, so I don't know what
We shouldn't probably have a whole lot of discussion on it.
I,
Yeah, we're just, if you maybe add it as a new discussion item, because this is just, at this point in the meeting, it's just approving the minutes. So definitely.
well, no, that's why I asked if we approve the minutes, that everything in the minutes been approved, they can go ahead and do it.
No, just.
Okay.
No. You're just approving.
Okay.
Approving the minutes themselves.
Yeah, what they discussed in their meeting, and it's any action, like for instance, what you were discussing is under item H, because it needs to
For
be.
Parks and Rec.
Correct.
But there's no place for this. So
Right,
this is a little bit different format than we
Yeah, this
used
is
to
our
do.
first
Yeah,
format.
it's our first
Tonight, this is the
format.
first format that we've had,
Yeah.
this new agenda.
Okay.
So when it, with
So-
the basis for this was just to approve the board minutes. Whatever's in the minutes, you're not approving necessarily, you're just
Okay,
approving
fine.
those minutes.
Okay, but if you make those approvals, do we need to point those items out to put them into new business before the approvals?
No, unless,
Well, if they're not in the general agenda
unless
and
there
we
was,
approve the minutes, then
Then
it's
we've
gone by the wayside. So technically, we need to pull them out, put them as new
New
business,
business
and
agenda item.
accept the,
only items that actually would require action. So if there's something that the ZBA did, for instance, or, you know, a
Okay, but-
planning commission, then you don't need to approve what the planning commission decided unless the planning commission, for instance, would have like a recommendation. They would make a recommendation which would be reflected in their minutes. Then that recommendation would go before you as a new business item. So you would be getting it as a separate new business item on your agenda. So you wouldn't, anything that needs council action that is contained in a meeting that is reflected in those minutes would be pulled out as a
so,
separate.
so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have to pull anything out that we want to talk about.
Correct.
Only if it's a
Only if
recommendation.
it's a recommendation, is what you're saying.
Correct, yeah,
In
only
other
if
words, it
it's-
has to be a motion to get to this table, but if it's commentary and discussion within a board, and there's been no action recommended, then there's no reason to go. It's within the
Correct.
board's confines until they make a decision to a motion and then come out. At the time it's a motion, and it goes into new business.
Correct.
Or into, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
guess the other option is that you could probably discuss it in council comments, right? It could be under council comments section.
Yeah, but we don't move, when we do that, we don't make motions.
There's no motion
There's no
here either.
motion, there's no motion.
No, but
on
if
this-
it was
Right.
in there.
Well-
All right, I'll say what I've got to say and then be done with it, and then wherever it goes. Okay, when I looked at the minutes, I saw on here that John Scott has a company that's gonna quote Shoreline Landscaping. I don't remember the council ever putting that together, and I don't know if this is just something you're doing from there, but we have a village engineer that is more than capable of discussing what you do about erosion control. You either put rocks down, you put a barricade up, or you put up a seawall. And I don't, and then the other part that I was concerned about was that the canal in Namuck, that there's like, John gave me something that they're looking for $12,000 for erosion study and another 17 for canals.
Can I address both of those then?
When I'm done.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't see where people who don't live on the lake or even live on the lake should be paying to have a canal or a canal dredged to improve private property. And the other thing that I saw here that was really an amazing remark, call of the public, and it says down here, we're talking about erosion. It said that the village has a long skinny lake and the wind moves swiftly across it, called fletching. Seawalls are the worst thing a resident can have. Wake boats can be another additional thing. And beaches are bad too for erosion. So seawall's no good and boats are no good. Of course, those boats do make more waves than they should. And beaches are no good. Why do we have a lake? Something out of line here.
Well, there's three things I would say. First of all, if I understand the recommendation of council, rather than using this forum to berate, tear down, and put out of context discussions that were here, and by the way, it says preliminary, so these are the initial discussions coming to council, there's no motions, but let's put the context around all three items. First of all, I see what I see. It wasn't, I was gonna bring in a recommendation. We, our particular point, had two quotes come at us, one for riprap and the other one for a pure natural reestablishment of our shoreline. I'm talking, Ed, I gave you the minute.
Go ahead.
So I indicated to the council I'd be more than happy to share that. I wasn't doing any quoting, it was a question, they wanted to see what were some of the possibilities, so we were doing that. So if it's, and I do like, and I appreciate the fact, I haven't even found it yet, if it was done that, we will be going over before we approve these minutes, I think that's normal process. Okay. Your second point, I guess I sort of lost it there for a second, was something to do with the, well, I'll take your third point. The context of talking about seawalls, beaches, and other points of erosion was in the context of what do we need to study. And Michael Hurst is leading this as a steering committee. And one thing we do know, that when you have a long, narrow lake, and we do have westerlies, so it builds a wave action, you add to that boats, and then you add seawalls, and there wasn't any comment about not wanting seawalls. He was putting it into the context of what he learned at a 8-hour convention on this very subject at Lansing, held by the DNR, the DEQ, Michigan State University, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Under current DEQ requirements, seawalls are to have riprap in front of them, so that as the waves start to pound against each other, the riprap breaks it up and they don't start bouncing into the middle of the lake. And that, I think that was the context that was put in. I don't think there was anybody, if you want to put a beach in, go for it. What was your third item? And I think, you know, come to the meetings, as we always want the public to come to our meetings, sit with us, give us your ideas, so that we can go through this. And I do appreciate the attorney saying that, you know, if the board has a motion, it'll be considered at this table. But I think from the standpoint of what your boards do, A, they're all experienced people, they're professional, they're adults, and they're taxpayers. And they're just trying to look out for this village. I think we all have a deep interest in that. And before a motion comes out here, it's well studied. Right now it's conversations. What do we do? What are we gonna do about erosion? What are we gonna do about the canals? Oh, that would be the other thing. That particular item that you're talking about, the 12,005, we were in an administrative meeting and we were talking about budgets. I brought that out to say, you know, the water board is looking at erosion and the water board is looking at the canals. There is, and if you would look carefully and share the true accuracy of what that says, it was really a statement that said they're looking for some kind of budgetary item that they could turn to each of these steering committees, this committee on erosion and the committee on the canals. We formed a steering committee on canals. Those are residents. We've got 7 of them on that steering committee reporting back to the board. And it was simply to say, the first thing we know we have to do is we need to do soil sampling. Now, do we pre-fund that and decide, because all else, as it says in that budget, will be done with an SAD? Each one of those residents, there's already 18 residents who have agreed that they will pay to do whatever removal of sediment and restoration of their own seawalls. They're not asking for money, they're just saying, how do we get going? You're the water board, give us a decision, give us a direction. So that, I just wanted to put it in context. I hope that helps everybody on council as well as people in the audience.
Okay, the last comment I have is, I thought that at one of the meetings, we decided that we were done with aeration.
The aeration, there is no compressors, and there isn't, they're sitting, the aeration is, and we still have a report that's due to us as to what the head conditions are. We are confident we can leave the air lines in, and we're confident we can leave the heads in without any destruction or hurting that equipment for up to 5 years, dead in the water. We are working at the very early stage to try and bring Wayne State in, as well as the University of Michigan. What's being found on Paradise Lake and 3 other lakes is that aeration in combination with herbicides and in combination with harvesting is turning to be very beneficial. There's 19 lakes out there, Ed.
Well, we're certainly not beneficial in Wolverine Lake.
Well, it's not properly placed.
Do we
I've
have
said that
action
for
on this
5
tonight?
years.
On aeration tonight?
No.
No, and I don't know why we're getting into this. I think I overstayed my stay.
Fine.
Approval of the minutes.
Let's go
Okay,
on.
well, let's move on then.
So do we have sort of a precedent, just so I understand? When a motion comes out of a board, that's when it'll be discussed, correct?
Correct. If there's
Yeah.
anything that would require
Action.
council's
Okay.
action, or if the board says, oh, we want council's input, specifically states, we
And we
need
do that.
direction.
That's what I
we
asked,
need-
the first comment I made.
But it's the board that needs to be the one looking for council input.
Well, if we would've had, if we
Aside
would've had
of
an
action.
agenda item that said update from the water board on a specific item, we would've been fine.
And when we do reach out to the
So I guess we'll just
administrator
keep
for
that-
that kind of help.
We'll keep that in mind, knowing
Okay,
now how
I made
this
my point.
new agenda structure kinda
Yeah, we'll
works.
continue to go. Normally with the process is meeting minutes, you're approving the minutes that
Right.
took place.
The document itself.
The document
The
itself.
document itself.
What's inside, hopefully, yeah, there was a recommendation from one of the boards, and then we would add that as an agenda item. I apologize if there was no water board update. I don't know if there was a recommendation to
There
that.
wasn't. We're just openly discussing these
Yeah.
items and trying to figure out, and
That's
then
what I
there
thought.
will be, at the budgetary meeting, there will be
Okay.
recommendations. yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
But we still need to, are we going to approve the minutes? Or
Oh, yeah, we have to approve those 2 sets of minutes then. Okay. So we need a motion to approve the Parks and Rec minutes and
So moved.
also the water board minutes. Motion
I
by
guess I'll
Newman,
second another one.
second by Malik. Any other discussion?
Jeez.
All in favor?
We're a
Aye.
team.
I know.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving along.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Moving along to item 8, I believe, correct? Board appointments. We got a recommendation, council to appoint Ed Campbell to the Planning Commission for a term expiring 12/31 of 2020, and Mr. Campbell is here. I believe. No, no, he's not. Okay, I thought he
Okay.
was.
I thought it was.
Sorry, he was.
All right, I didn't get to do my first.
Your first swearing in?
All right.
Well,
can
in
still
any
vote
case,
to
any
appoint
case, yeah, we did, he did apply to the Planning Commission, and he came, and he's been on, he's been
Who's on the
on.
planning commission? You are,
I
right?
am, yep, yep.
Okay,
And he
what's-
he was actually, he's been on South Lyon Planning Commission, or
Okay.
Lyon Township, I believe it was, for like 6 years.
And he's been a resident here
New resident for about 3 months.
Okay.
So he just moved in.
We don't have
He's
any
planning-
stipulations on time
No,
living here, do we,
no.
for those?
He's planning on sticking
Okay.
around. He just moved it. He moved into the village. He really
And
enjoys it, so he wants
being
to.
on the commission, you feel,
I think he'd be a good addition, yeah.
okay, then I make a motion, we accept Mr. Ed Campbell for planning commission, term expiring of 12/31/2020.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by Sinkowitz. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, presentations, updates from Engineer Powell. Number 1 is Oak Island Road paving condition and issues.
It's amazing that's the first one. And so I appreciate the comments from the Oak Island residents. If council remembers, that particular project was bid by very large companies back late last summer. The bids came in extremely high, and council decided that we still wanted to get that road done last year, and so it was pushing the end of the construction season a little bit. The paver did get in there, got their work done. However, the punch list has not been completed yet. I have a meeting with the contractor at 1 o'clock on Friday, in which we're going over all those punch list items. The number of them is the stone edging around the pavement. In order to, when we repave, we also try to solve some drainage issues, and there were some major drainage issues out there on the island. There were areas in the park area that were ponding water, and areas adjacent to the roads that were ponding water. To eliminate that, we had to raise some sections of the road, lower other sections of the road in order to force water off the roadway. And then we backfilled the edges of the roads, where we ended up with over about a 2-inch drop off the edge of the road. Those of you that know the island, it's a narrower road than most of the roads in the village. So when people pass, sometimes the wheel drops off the pavement. Two things that we wanted to prevent from happening. We wanted to prevent damage to our car by leaving the pavement and dropping down too far off the edge of the pavement and getting off the roadway. And then also, the edge of the road, when you have no support on the edge of the road, that tears down and breaks down the edge of the pavement itself. And so therefore, I used my judgment and put crushed stone up against the edge of the asphalt in order to temporarily support that pavement during the winter time. The overall intent, and this complicates it a little bit because this particular project is the first step in a landscaping project. And so instead of the contractor coming in and doing landscaping and shoulder work and everything, we were kind of waiting to get some input from the landscaper, from the Oak Island people, and how that landscaping is going to be done, where bushes were going to be placed, where sod, where seed and mulch. So it was the intent in the design of that the grass go right up to the edge of the pavement. We've tried many different methods, and it just never looks good when you have gravel along the side of the road when everybody else has grass coming right up to the edge of the road. So when the landscaper is in there doing his work, we're looking for them to drop the aggregate down about 2 inches below the pavement, bring topsoil in over top of that gravel, because there's some filling that has to be done in the parkland anyway, and some seeding and mulching and various other things. So we're looking, the plan was anyway for the grass to be brought right up to the edge of the pavement, 2 inches of topsoil, and seeded so that we have a nice looking park area without a gravel edge all the way around all those roads. So that also addresses the wedge issue going down the slope. And to the contrary to what the resident said, there's always been a wedge along that road. If we didn't have a asphalt wedge or concrete wedge along the side, something like Daffy Duck or something, then the water travels right down the edge of the asphalt, and it actually undermines the asphalt, and we end up with gullies down each side of the road. So we put a little asphalt wedge. Now, the first time it was done by a larger contractor with a special machine that was a really nice tapered edge. Towards the end of the year, last year, they did this one by hand, and I gotta admit, it looks terrible. It just really does. And so the contractor knows that he has to come back, do some additional work, and I'm going over every single one of those punch list items with him on Friday, including any cracking that's occurred and things like that. So I do want to mention, and those of you that are in the business know that every type of pavement cracks. You can't even design pavement that doesn't crack. You can't afford it, put it that way. So there will be cracking, and we have cracking on all the roads, and we have crack sealing programs to try to prevent water intrusion. But if it's excessive cracking too soon, then we hold the contractor responsible. We have a year guarantee on all our pavement and all our work in the specifications. This is it's not a big contractor, but he is a very reputable and very qualified, and he stands behind his work, and he wants to make sure the village is happy. So there's probably no reason I go down every single item here. One of the issues that were brought up is there's some ponding that occurs where they didn't do a good job blending the pavement into the bridge. That area needs to be adjusted. And so there's a number of punch list items. It got too late in the year last year to deal with them. Frost laws this year so far, and so their first time paving will be this next week. So I wanted to let council know that that is on the agenda, and we will hopefully be addressing each one of those items. And the contractor apologized for the condition, but he stands behind his work.
I have a question. The resident mentioned there's a pothole already?
Oh, yeah. There's like a number of large areas where the aggregate is just, in the surface, is actually falling apart, just coming down into my driveway.
Have you
Where
looked
I
at
don't
that
see
much?
that
I have-
aggregate happening.
I have not seen that. I saw some pictures. One of the issues that we had to deal with is so tight there. We had cars going on it way before it was even compacted.
But you're having a
So-
meeting with the contractor on Friday, you
That-
will
Oh,
go
absolutely.
there and look at that with
I've been
him?
provided those pictures, and so I will be dealing with them on each one of those.
Okay, but will he physically go there with you to see this, or?
Oh, I'm meeting him there.
Oh, all right.
Absolutely, going over each
Okay.
one of those items.
Thank you.
That is correct.
Mike, on the
Thank you, Mark.
sections where there, that angled section that is designed to direct the rainwater.
Yeah, it's a wedge.
The wedge. What's the best way to correct that? If you can remember, a few years back on Lakeview, there was an issue on the same part of the road. And that was repaired, and
Correct.
it looked terrible.
Yes.
Will that same type of repair
I'm going to be,
applied?
the right way to do this is to bring a whole paving machine that actually is designed to do that. This contractor doesn't have that kind of machine. But it can be done much, much better than it is, and so it needs to be readdressed.
By hand.
It'll be heated, and has to be done by hand. There isn't a small little curbing machine that does that, unless you're actually doing it out of concrete. So it will have to be done by hand, correct.
The same asphalt reheated and then
Oh, no,
tamped into place?
Oh, no, the reheating will just be done in order to allow the new stuff to be able to be blended
So it'll be
in.
remove, replace?
It'll be massaged, reshaped, and then replaced, correct. That's correct. Any other questions on Oak Island?
Thank- appreciate
Okay,
it.
I could use some, maybe some assistance from the committee and from Oak Island in that along the areas of the roadway outside of the immediate area of the park, like down the road towards the bridge, I'm assuming that that would be topsoil seed mulch as well. And I don't know if we can roll that in. That was not an agenda, that wasn't a bid item from the contractor, so he bid stone. And it might be best to allow the landscaper to quote on putting topsoil behind that curbing after it gets replaced, of course, and repaired, instead of putting stone behind it again all the way down that.
One of the
that-
residents has already done his backfill.
And that's awesome. So, so that guidance would be helpful, maybe from the committee and from Oak Island people as well.
Why don't you give one of them your just so you have the contact.
Oh, absolutely.
This is the committee here.
I appreciate that. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Okay. So would you like me to go on to the next item?
Sure. John, you being an Oak Island resident, you happy with what you
Yeah,
heard?
absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I've worked with Mike a long time. I guess I should ask the committee. It sounds like the resolutions are there. We just need to work with Mike
And
and
if you're gonna be
Right.
walking on Friday.
I'll be there walking it on Friday at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Yes.
I'll meet you up there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's-
there you go.
So then, so Mike, and then, let me understand this, you're suggesting maybe we could roll that additional dressing up of the edge of the road into the landscaping?
That was,
Program.
in the park area itself,
Right.
that was always the intent. Outside of the park area, certainly down the drives and
Right.
things like that, it would make a lot of sense to continue that same process throughout the entire
We're
roadway.
probably talking minimal amount.
It'd be very minimal, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to take care of that, I'm sure.
Okay.
It's not a huge-
No, it's more labor than anything else,
Right.
right.
some problems.
Great. Okay, item 2, revisiting road paving and maintenance schedule.
Yes, now, this is where, quite frankly, the administration and I could use some guidance from council. So that the public knows, the village does have, it started out being a 7-year maintenance program to establish budgets for maintaining the roadways. It is down to a 5-year maintenance program, and all council has seen that plan, the colored plan that kind of shows the roads that are proposed to be resurfaced, repaved, reconstructed over the next 5 years. The way it's set right now, in the next 4 to 5 years, all the roads were going to virtually be new and be set for the next 15 to 20 years, that program is getting more and more expensive to fulfill. As represented in the bids that came in the last couple go-arounds for repaving, the plan that I handed out is for the next item, but you can certainly look at it because it kind of shows the roads that still need to be done. For the 2018-19 paving program, the budgeted funds were $336,500, and that was to be done in the 2018 budget. That's the current budget year. It was then proposed to be budgeted in the next fiscal year. That's the 2019 and 2020 fiscal year, $466,000. Because the bids came in so high last fall, what we did is combine them to make it a bigger project that allowed the unit prices to come down, and the contractor has agreed to spread that cost out over in the product over both fiscal years, if council would like, and we'll discuss that in the next item there. Where I'm hoping to get some guidance in the 2020, let me back up. So if we do all the paving actually that's being bid on this year, if we do it this summer, there will be no additional paving proposed the end of this year and next spring, because we will have done all the 2019-20 paving in this summer year, which is kind of split with our village fiscal year. So it works out pretty well balanced in the two fiscal years. Where we really run into some issues is that in 2020-21 budget, so that's a year and a half, 2 years from now, the number of roads that are going to be needing work jumps up dramatically. And so we end up with about a $900,000 budget item based on today's dollars. And the concern is, as we progress forward, and I kind of schooled council a little bit, with the state of Michigan and local governments, with the county government spending so much money on pavement, they are going to be increasing the cost of repaving roadways in the future. Both the labor and the material are going to be taken up by the state and the county governments, and going to leave really none of that available to the local community without spending a great deal of money. So it makes a lot of sense for council to re-look at the budget going forward. If we take that budget year of 2020, 2021, which is currently at about $900,000, if we spread that out over 2-3 years, we are not decreasing the life of the roadways. They're already in need of repair, but they're still structurally in place. We don't have large potholes like the Oak Island experienced last year. So I guess for a budget standpoint, as your engineer, I can spread the proposed paving out over any number of years council would like. And so this budget just came from your engineer saying that these roads need to be repaired. But it makes a great deal of sense, as it was brought up maybe earlier, is to rethink the budgeted items and maybe spread those out over a smaller amount over a longer period of time. I think that would be wise, and with some guidance on that, I can modify the 7-year plan that's now a 5-year plan out back into a 7 or 8 year plan, so that council can budget for it a little bit more softly over the next years, and maybe plan other improvements in the village as well. So I'm kind of looking for guidance as to what might be a good budget number. Now, whether or not this gets tabled or postponed and maybe sent to administrative committee for guidance, and I'm good with that, but the administration and I would really welcome any input from council on how we might modify those road plans.
Mike, a couple comments if I can.
Absolutely.
Okay. I noticed on here that the walkway from Clara Miller Park to the ice cream shop Is that going to be in this year's?
That's in this year's budget, that is
Okay, I didn't
correct.
see it on the print here.
It is, it's kind
a
of
new
wrapped
note.
into that area, it's a colored area there, and that's in, that is in this budget.
And the other question I had is on Wolverine Lake Drive, where you have those areas that need repair,
Yes.
is that something you think that either the base gave out or just the asphalt? Because you show that the rest of the road is in decent shape, but there's
Right.
4 or 5 areas. Do you have any idea what?
Ed, I've not done any soil borings in those areas yet. There is obviously a base failure. Asphalt pavement is a flexible pavement, and it's only as strong as the base underneath that roadway. So those areas really need to be taken out, new base put in, identify why it was failing in the first place, and then new pavement put in. And that's part of this particular budget. And the plan was to restore those areas, correct?
Yeah. And the last,
Can I throw in, to answer your question? Mike, if you look at, all of those are where those culverts are crossed from the east to the west into Wolverine Lake.
Good point, Chief.
So that's where all of those are starting to favor there, or fail, is where those culverts are actually coming across Wolverine Drive.
Yeah, we do have a major culvert replacement in the current bid, so that's very possible that we need
yeah,
to
the
replace those
culverts might be
culverts.
too close to the bottom and freeze and thaw.
Correct.
Then the last comment I wanted to make is that basically on your sheet here, we're taking care of the pink and the yellow. We're getting up to 2020.
Correct.
That'll be done. Now, my only question about 20 and 21 was going to be a very expensive year. Are there any roads in there that we could do some minor repair and save the road so that 2 years down the line, we don't have to tear the whole road up? We can, go in there and mill it and then put new pavement over it? Or are they the kind that you think that in 2 years, there's not going to be nothing to save?
Yeah, really, those roads are sufficiently deteriorated to
Okay.
where I don't believe that we'll be able to just selectively change the selectively guide the paver in the field to save
Okay.
sections.
Those will
Correct.
need to be
I think
complete.
they'll need to be
Okay, thank you.
Mike, talking about specific areas, what about McCoy Road and Ladd, that intersection? Is that part of any of this?
It is. As a matter of fact, it was added when, if you recall, at the last meeting,
Tri-party.
council,
Tri-party funds.
Tri-party, yeah.
council
Oh, the
approved that as
tri-party,
part of the
we're gonna do that
tri-party
Friday.
funds. And so
Tri-party.
2/3 of the cost of that intersection is going to be paid for by the Oakland County government. So we've enrolled that into the project. That is correct.
So when we talk about extending this program from, let's say, a 5-year terminal to 7 years,
Right.
okay? Part of the discussion of going after these next 2 years is a combination of looking for a higher work project to get a lower bid, as I understood. I mean, in the sense you're saving the staging cost or spreading it out over more of the road, correct?
Well, it's that, and I want to explain, it's not only that, but they can make more of a profit by charging less per unit
Right.
because it's quantity,
Quantity.
quality,
Quantity.
I'm sorry, quantity helps us get the price down.
Right.
Right.
And in that discussion, we were talking about also saving money by saving portions of the road where you felt from an engineer, part of the base would be okay, maybe the next 40 feet wouldn't be okay, that'd have to go to full mode, okay? And I'm gonna go back to a personal experience and why I called our president, Brian. I was driving down Concrete on the way to a doctor's appointment, and I felt like I was going through one of those old washboards. There'd be a great piece of concrete, a new one, then you go into something that wasn't cracked, but you could see they were trying to save money by doing that kind of piecework. And I'm just wondering, when we're talking about our roads, I think you've said many times, we're dealing with a pretty solid foundation of sand as compared to maybe that kind of problem.
Correct.
So if we go back after this and look at it not only as spreading it out, but maybe moving away from doing that kind of piecework and going to full grind, might cost more money, but would we be extending the life of, let's say, a road that we take alternate positioning on it alternating carve-out, my cost is 20% or 10% more to do the whole takedown, but would we extend the life of that road by 30%? I'm trying to figure out, where is that balance? Where do you make that? But you're the engineer, I'm just,
Quite frankly, you get the best road product if you take up all the old asphalt, compact the base, shape the base, and put all new asphalt down, without a doubt. This is what the proposal that I presented last month was a way to back off that a little bit, extend the roads as far as we can. It's kind of like an economics judgment call. If you do the roads now and can extend it for an additional 5 years by ripping them all out, but you can only do half the number of roads now, is that where council wants to go? Or do you want to make the roads last for the next 10, 15 years instead of 20 years by doing some engineering judgment in the process? I would never propose leaving sections of the road in that are just going to disintegrate before it's time. We've all been down county roads, Ed can tell you. We just had Commerce Road done, I think, last year, or maybe 2 years ago, and it's like they never even did it.
yeah.
And that's very discouraging. We've not had that problem in the village, and so it's really, I'd love to just put all new roads in, without a doubt. That's a dummy way to do it, because you can just go in, take them all out, and put them all back in. Very
Well, that's what I was
expensive to do that.
wondering.
It's
Is that all
getting,
part of the contemplation about it, both extending them, increasing or decreasing average life issues as compared to dollars saved?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real balance. You're the engineer, I guess. I know you thought that. I wasn't questioning
yes.
what you were recommending, other than saying, hey, what's the best way to go? The other question I have is, as I've dug a little bit into it, I'm not an engineer, got those in my family, and B, I have a little understanding of the oil markets and, London crude and where the swaps and all of that are. Not as much as a guy I know in the audience that trades that for a living. But I understand the actual bituminous is about 5% of the cost of the surface, the rest is gravel and et cetera. So it could be 10%, I'm not sure, that's what I'm hearing. So if you take the surface, the actual physical item you're laying down, if you had $1, how much of that cost is really the labor cost? Because I'm trying to grab a hold, if everybody's doing roads, what's getting the most cost impact? Is it labor? Or is it a shortage of materials, or is it a combination of it? We don't have enough plants to produce what we need on roads, therefore it's a blow up of both of it?
It is, Mr. Scott. It is. The labor, there's only so much labor out there to put the asphalt down, and there's only so many plants that can actually make the asphalt. Your statistics are a little bit off. Bitumen is 8 to 10% of the mix that actually goes down,
Right.
which is mixed with sand and aggregate as well. So it's not just bitumen that goes down, it's a mixture of all that binds it together. So the actual asphalt or the bitumen itself is a relatively small percentage, but then you have the plants making the mix and making the aggregate that goes in the mix and the stones and all that stuff. So I'm not a very good economist, and so I leave that to the experts. The bottom line is we have to adhere to the bids that we get, and we know they're going up dramatically each year.
Okay.
So I'd like to request this, is you're asking us for some help with what we want to do here. Personally, I would like to see a recommendation, right? You just said, I'd like to see quality, rip them all out, right? What is your recommendation? And then we can evaluate that and maybe some options to go with that, and then we can make a
Yeah.
decision.
I think that's why I answered Councilman Sinkowitz's question the way I did. Looking ahead 2 years in that 2020, 2021, quite frankly, those roads are going to have to come out. And so there's no urgency to get them all done in 1 year, we can spread those out, because we're not harming the village at all, except that we're gonna have some cracking on the roads that people are gonna have to get used to.
Mike, quick.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I had a discussion with my son the other day about all this stuff, and he says, he was at a meeting and they were talking about this kind of stuff and how much they have to do. He says, first of all, you need aggregate for concrete and you need aggregate for asphalt. And you can't use crushed concrete.
Right.
And there's only so much aggregate on the planet and in Michigan. And a lot of farmers don't want their property tore up to take more aggregate out. And we've got 4 or 5 plants around here, but between the concrete that's gonna be laid in the next couple of years and asphalt, even the small contractors are getting caught in to do like the ramps and the curbs because there's not enough people to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's why we discussed this before, that if you don't have a sizable product or project, you're not gonna get it. And they said that the price of the material is gonna be going up all year.
Absolutely, and the
Quicker you get a bid, lock in a bid,
give you
the
another
better off.
example of that, we saved about 15% by rebidding it this spring and doing the work instead of last fall. We did not have a drop in 15% in the materials. It was the supply and demand of the labor. So we saved in labor because they're not busy now, but they were swamped last fall.
Mike,
Right.
I do have a question, and I don't want to get into it elaborately, but we see things on the news and different things about they're using recycled plastics for roads. Okay, now, I don't know if you've looked in or studied anything or pointed, but being a small community who doesn't have the huge traffic volume, is that something that this village should possibly research?
What a great question, and I don't
No,
know
no,
the answer
I
to it.
just,
I
I'm
know
going by
that,
the things I've seen on the news.
I know that all our specifications are really produced by the Michigan Department of Transportation, and I know that the MDOT has not approved any recycling of even old asphalt over a certain percentage.
Right.
So they don't allow contaminants into the product yet. And remember, asphalt goes down at 300 degrees. Any plastics whatsoever would be destroyed in that kind
Well,
of temperature.
I don't know, but again, I've seen, different comments
Right.
and news flashes, and that's why I asked if it's something that, I guess, we as a council, is it something you can ask questions about?
Good
Without
question.
throwing a bill on top of us to have you do something?
Well, I'd be glad to ask the researchers at MDOT so I can come back with an answer to that.
That's all I ask. I'm only going by what I've seen on the news and things, so, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. President, can I ask this question? There is probably a point, and this is a good point to say, that there's a lot of information floating. And I see item K coming up, discussion of alternative funding options for capital improvements, which would include lakes, canals, roads, and park improvements. I don't know what a percentage of our budget is on roads, but I think we heard another resident talking about we shouldn't have general funds being spent for roads. I think most communities don't use general funds for roads. They usually do long-term bond funding. With that said, would item K be the great discussion point to put out for the next work session, or do we have budgets on the work session in general for the month of April? Maybe we should gather this group of information so the rest of the group who is here to listen to specific items can.
That could be a good item to put on the work session.
Okay, I just was asking, I think because it is the item below it, item L, work session. Looks like we could put it into L and all gather here in 2 weeks. Would you be available to extend that conversation?
I will check and I'll work with administration.
Great. That sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just one last item for council, and for those of the residents who are paying attention to this broadcast, we met with the contractor Friday for a pre-construction meeting in which we were able to identify what their schedule might be like in what roads they would like to do in which months. the plan that I have before you that I handed out on the 11 by 17. The contractor would like to start down in the south part of the village, Adelaide and Amenia and Ladd Road, in the end of this month and the first part of May, and work counterclockwise around the village and do the Angola, the Ventura, and the Shanken section in the months of, towards the end of May, first part of June. Then do the Terry, Roselawn, and Los Arboles and Glen Streets, then in the June and July, and then the Apple Orchard, McIntosh and Avery Court, and the pathway then done in the July construction. They are very well aware, they're experienced contractors here in the village, they're very much aware that we don't do anything around Tiki Night. And so they will be totally closed up, the roads will be buttoned up. There may be some that have been turned to gravel but compacted. Their vehicles will be moved out of the way because this community swells during that time of the year, and they know that they have to work around 4th of July. So that being said, if council has any questions on anything that I've presented tonight, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm here for the other discussion on the rest of the agenda items.
Just to note, we did get the approval for the tripartite fund, so that will be transpiring on Ladd Road, McCoy.
On all three intersections, we were approved. The only thing we haven't been totally approved on is the pathway, and they're looking, they have agreed in principle to it. We haven't received the written documentation approving the pathway yet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, council.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
Move on, presentation of the Oak Island Park Landscaping Improvement Plan by the Board of Oak Island Homeowners Association. Isn't it Julie?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie Height. I'm a resident at 215 Oak Island Drive on that crazy island we're talking about tonight. This is Dean McQuaid, and I'm the Vice President of the Oak Island Association. Kim Britton is here tonight as the treasurer of our association. Kara Prince is our president. She's not with us tonight, and as well as Donna Bruckner could not make it. She's our secretary. However, Kara Prince was with the capital funding meeting last night and did an excellent presentation on our behalf regarding a lot of details about that presentation. I'm assuming that everyone has gotten this packet, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. In that packet, there is a lot of history of what we have gone through as an association to, how do I want to say this? Create a park, because it's not a park. It's been a parking lot for a long time, right, Dean? It's been a parking lot for a long time. So I'm here to do a quick synopsis of what we want to present as far as what our methodology has been. The history is there on the form that you have.
Show them what you're looking at.
Yes, I'm sorry, this page, the front page.
Thank you.
The front page there.
Any more?
We have a history of what we went through as an association with some of our, with our resident input. Well, we did really, because of the absence of an administrator, unfortunately, we lost Nathan back in, I think, November. This situation was going forward, and without an administrator, we as residents kind of took it upon ourselves to start talking to landscapers. We came up with our design plan that Nathan was aware of a little bit, but we fine-tuned it.
And we had 4 bidders come out to go over their ideas, and all their bids and their ideas are in the package.
We gave them an initial, kind of a initial design.
We gave them the initial
Idea of what we
idea.
wanted, of kind of what we wanted. I took each landscaper in to the park and walked them around, specifically saying the items that we were requesting. We did an RFP and gave that out to each of these landscapers to have an equal footing so that they all knew specifically what we wanted. We did offer up a little bit of their own design features. However, we wanted them to stick strictly to our design that we wanted to keep that even and equal and everything else. What else can you say about that, Dean?
Well, and we had them make sure that, being that our oaks on Oak Island are getting older, we're advising that we want to put some pin oaks in. Pin oaks are a very healthy oak. They're disease tolerant, and they also grow faster. So they'll actually be able to fill in and take over and give that Oak Island feel back instead of Oakless Island. So the thing is that we also, all of our landscaping that we have talked about is going to be mower friendly. It's going to be drought friendly.
Yes.
The grass put in will be drought tolerant grass, which would be a red fescue, which will also be great underneath the canopy of the oaks. Will not be affected when we have the occasional parking in the park, when, as we all know, during Tiki Night, or large gatherings, because as everybody knows, on the island, there's not a lot of personal parking areas. So we've actually made sure that the park will look like a park and be maintained and be able to be maintained easily. So the design's all about form, function, and looking good, helping everybody's values of their property and the village look better.
Turn it into a park, in other words, other than a parking lot. However, we still invite and will still have ability to park in the park for things like Tiki Night. So we're, in our design, implementing that very high level need, you know, really, as you all know. I mean, it is a 24, 48-hour
And it will be, from what we know, it will be a request to the police to say, we will be using the park during the 3rd of July, and this is the event, and we will need that for that. We're gonna stick to the no overnight parking. But there, I'm sure there might be some situations where we do not want that person to get in their car.
That situation's a work in
Yeah,
progress,
progress.
really with the police department and DPW, and where we want things to make sense.
And we've already started to, with the police department's help.
And we've gotten the paving
maintain-
done. We've
yep.
gotten the paving done in the park, which adds parking spaces to the park, which are physical. So our idea with that, quickly just to say, we know everybody thinks it's a parking lot. Let's put some actual parking spaces there and see if they'll go there first, versus on the grass.
Yeah.
Or, you know, in places where we really don't want cars, you know, and it's working.
It's working.
It's working. People are actually parking in the spaces with the pavement, which is great, because you have landscapers, you've got, you know, all kinds of different utility trucks, garbage trucks. I mean, you know, there's a hard way, it's really hard to turn around in the island or on the island, so it just makes sense. And so our also design idea was to take those parking areas and keep it a cohesive design so that people would understand, oh, this is part of the park, this is part of the park, and this is part of the park. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
We want to say real quick, too, that Linda Champagne, a few years ago, unfortunately, she lost her father, Jack Champagne, and she had donated and put out there a bench, a memory bench in his name. And we thought, wow, took that idea and moved it into adding a little memory garden there. You know, it's back away, as you can see from the drawings, it's far away from anybody parking in that area. No one's gonna park on our little garden. But we wanted to kind of, not only were we thinking about people who we are losing now or we've lost recently, but maybe even ourselves a couple years from now. We might wanna be memorialized there, you know, so not a bad idea. So we like the idea of the memory garden. We've done a very thorough job at measuring all the 4 different landscapers. We feel very good. We've worked very strongly as a team with not only our own team, but several of the other residents as well. We've gained a lot of input, so we're really proud of what we've come up with. And our last thing to do would be to get your approval on that, and also to take it to the next level, which would be hopefully our chosen landscaper will be approved by you all. Take that then to the residents of Oak Island and have the design actually painted on he said he would spray paint, you know, what he's kind of going to do. And then at that point, bring any residents in that have any ideas,
Yeah.
disagree,
And we wanna,
whatever they would
you know,
want to say.
And we were given the choice
Yeah.
to do this and help, you know, we polled the residents. So everybody got an
Yes, we
input of what
surveyed
they
them.
wanted and stuff like that. So we took into consideration. And the one thing is to keep Those people who have to look at the cars, we wanted to kind of disguise the parking areas in those areas so that they're not like this, if people are parking there, you're not having this car in your, in your face, so.
So we chose a company called Shura. He's a very nice gentleman. He's a person that's done many commercial projects in the past, so he's very experienced. And he also would be available, and again, this is a design in process. Nothing is set in stone. We know we have got to be flexible for everyone to be pleased. However, not everyone's always going to be pleased. But we do want to keep it very kind of fluid, but very firm, and the same, I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I mean? Like, let's keep to something that we all agree upon, but also be open to any changes or anything that makes other people happy. So with that, I think that's it, unless anybody has any questions for us.
So those are changes within the budget, though?
Absolutely, I mean, that would be absolutely
Moving plants
within
from
the
here to
budget that we
there,
already have approved.
locations.
Yeah, we're talking if you want to put one of the red bud trees here instead of there.
Okay.
Somebody doesn't like this in front of their, specific area, whatever,
Or
that-
if they
that
have
kind
a
of stuff.
suggestion on a planting that they think is more drought tolerant.
Don't like a
make-
hosta, you want to have something different,
So,
hibiscus.
that
or-
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, I'm looking at the last item.
Mhm.
Assorted perennials.
Mhm.
Who's gonna maintain them?
No, these are drought-resistant perennials.
Mhm.
So there's low-maintenance perennials.
Okay, but that's gonna be in areas that the snow plow's gonna plow stuff over them. All I'm saying is, I don't wanna spend money
Yeah.
that's gonna get destroyed after the fact.
Absolutely.
The
Okay,
parking areas
and-
are, during the winter, were not plowed this last winter, don't know if that.
Well, that was this past winter, but who's to say the driver doesn't get ambitious come next winter? Okay, I'm
That's
just
the whole
saying, this
idea
is the
of the-
possibility,
That's all-
and
news
you're
is-
talking $2,000.
Well, in our design as well, there will be areas where there will be rocks, so that trucks won't be able to plow into our beautiful gardens.
Well, yeah, I see you got
So that's
5
going
rocks
to
up
be-
there at $250.
Well, those will be assorted in different areas. They may not be just all in one bunch.
Well, it says boulders.
Sure, sure. So different things will keep that in mind, and that's certainly not a bad idea to give our snowplow people that.
But most of the areas that are going to have access to the snowplow are not even close to the road. And they're part of the parking, and they're drought tolerant. They're going to, you can pile snow on them, you can do whatever you want to them. They're gonna come back every year.
We were
That's
also-
the- That's the whole thought on this, is to be very vigilant about low maintenance and making sure that the plant would come back every year.
We also were very conscientious of the fall leaves collection
Yep.
and making
Mhm.
sure that that
Things
area
were not-
stays very open so that it's not, you don't have a rock in that area or, a beautiful garden design. So
Catching
we've
those.
kept those things open. And it's also our hope that along some of those areas that somebody, people may actually even parallel park, if they could versus pull right on the grass or in a nice area, so. But, thank you for that comment, though. Anything else?
Okay, you got oak 2.5 inch. What size are these? I see you got for 3 of them.
They're large, 2.5-inch trunk.
Yeah, but how, are they 4 foot tall, 12 foot tall?
That's the seedling that
Well,
goes
it's
in.
gonna all depend on the width. he's going.
I have
by the
no
trunk.
idea, I'm not a landscaper,
Right,
that's
that's
why
okay.
I
They'll
see the
go in
price
there.
and I'm
That's
asking the
the size
question.
that they'll go in, and then they'll grow.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. These are mid-range sizes.
Okay, are they trees that are gonna grow very large?
Yes.
Because the reason I ask this, I've been on council for a lot of years, and I got 40-plus years in this community, and I've asked about a maintenance plan for the trees we already have, and we can't get it.
Yeah.
And here we're adding more, and I'm not against the trees, because we need them.
Yeah,
But, what's it gonna cost us down the road?
right. And if you take a look at that specific question, thing you're talking
Well,
about,
well,
is those trees that are there, there's 2 of them that are literally 80% dead.
Okay.
And we'll have to, out
Well,
of a hazard
I can show you
problem, will
trees
have to be
on my
removed.
street that are 90% dead.
Absolutely.
They're all dying on the island.
So we
Well,
want to make sure.
They're dying all over the village, Linda.
So that's why the pin oaks are there, and these are low
Yeah.
maintenance. Pin oaks are very low maintenance. They grow a little faster so that they will fill in, and, to go and prune, that's part of what we need to do. And whether it's whoever takes care of it, that's what's called a park.
Hey, Mike, isn't that part of the long-term plan that you're putting together, actually a schedule of consistent DPW activities and maintenance?
Yes, as
So
well
that
as
we're
the
not
tree
in
maintenance
this
plan.
sporadic kind of management
Yes.
that we've been in? Okay.
You know,
I
I
think
mean.
that answers your question. but I-
Well, I've had 5 trees within 4 or 5 houses myself in 40 years that, you know, the maintenance is come down, cut them down because they're dead.
Yeah.
We've
Well,
done
trees
nothing
die.
to enhance their beauty or the beauty of the community.
I will say that I personally took down a tree that was half dead, but the DPW told me because it was only half dead, that they would not take it down.
I
They
know,
only took-
I've
and
gone
so
through.
that will be the struggle, and that's probably why we have a great new administrator. who
these
is,
rocks
gonna work on it.
Oh, yeah, well, look, I'm not against it. It's a great community. I mean, a lot of us have lived here a long time. And we want things
No,
better.
they're just gonna leave the rocks.
But we are, everything about our plan is very thinking forward. It's very 20 years in the future. You know, that's exactly what we're doing it for. That's where our heart it lies. It's really into the future residents and your values and the children that will be, you know, born here and living here and all that
You know,
good
I can
stuff.
appreciate what you're saying, totally. But again, I don't get onto the island. I don't see what's going on. I
Yeah.
see what's going on in my own neighborhood,
Sure.
okay? So this is all fine and dandy. We're gonna spend X amount of dollars and improve it and keep everybody happy.
I will say this, that
And we came under budget too.
of our area, of our village, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I find that because I live on the island, it is highly, highly visited by many residents. They love the island, they love to ride their bikes, they love to walk their dogs. And so this is really something that everybody's gonna benefit from. There's so many
That's the idea
visitors on the
behind
island.
pocket parks, actually.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Not just this one, but many of them, but yeah, it's a great thing.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
again, I'm not against the stuff.
No.
I just want answers so I know what we're spending this community's money on.
It's so appreciated too.
I think you did a great job
Thank
putting it
you.
together.
I
Yeah.
think we did too. We're proud of ourselves.
Thank you for the presentation, too.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we're almost on to new business. We have no public hearing. Yeah, Mr. Mersch, you wanted to speak on that? Yeah, please.
The question at the desk is, oh, I'm sorry.
Tom Mersch, 265 Oak Island. I don't have a problem with what they want to do in the park at all. That's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I have a problem with the Circle Drive, which is right in front of my home, my house. There's 3 of us there that are impacted by this. You talk about maintenance, there's a lot of maintenance. Sure, you don't have to water them, you don't have to cut them, but who's going to clean the leaves out of them whenever the leaves get clogged up in them? 2 things, or a couple things. Down here is where I'm referring to. They got more vegetation here, or as much vegetation here as they got throughout, like here. There's a lot of vegetation right here. One thing I talked to Mike Powell about last year when they proposed this was that Circle Drive cannot handle large trucks, cars with boat trailers on them. They come through that center drive there where the vegetation is, where the new paving is. The Hostas, like you say, who's gonna clean them? When I talked to Mike last year about this, I told him I would take care of that whole area there. Just put grass in there and let it go. Have no problem with taking care of it, but putting these, 4 bushes in here and then the houses on both sides, I don't know, it just, we blow our leaves, all of our leaves come up through down our driveways, Boys Claire's and mine, and they go right through there and across the road and between the 2 trees across the road from there. That's where the pickup is. There's not gonna be any way for me to get the leaves, blowing them through that area, unless I go around the driveways and so forth, which I try to keep as clean as I can. as far as the rest of the park goes, the main park, I have no problem with what they want to do. But in this area here, I have issues with it. And they're not going to be, they're always going to be full of leaves. And I'm going to be calling every other week, come and clean the leaves out.
Okay.
So,
I think Dean can address that.
Okay, the whole thing is that hostas die back. When they do the fall cleanup with all the leaves, you can blow the leaves right over that stuff. It's not going to impact that. The area, I think that, I have a smaller area to pull my leaves up. I pull my leaves up into a 4-foot area. I have to have a company do it because I'm getting a little too old to be doing it myself because there's so many leaves. But the one thing is that, you know, we all live in our space, and that is part of the park, and we want to make it look like a park.
I'll tell you, Dean, that the houses don't die, they fall over, but they still collect a lot of leaves. We have to pull our houses up every year and cut them back. The four bushes that you're putting in here are gonna collect a lot of leaves. Who's gonna clean them? I'm gonna be calling the village every couple of weeks, come out and clean them.
Again, I wanted to just express again that our plan is a fluid and flexible plan, as you all heard us mention.
I'm looking for access from the occasion time that we have a boat and a trailer or a large truck to deliver furniture or something to these two homes, and they've used it in other parts to back up and pull back into this area here to swing around. They used to use the park. Now they're not gonna be able to use the park.
But they have.
So that's the only logical place that a large truck going down that road, backing up, can turn around and go around. Unless he backs up all the way into the, all the way down to the end of where the entrance is.
It is definitely.
So
It's a
I
tough
would be
area up on
against
the park,
putting,
What's great about the plan?
up on the island.
It has been approved already for EMS trucks.
I would be against putting,
everything like that.
these four
So
plants in
whatever
here
Chuck's talking about, it can fit because
for that
we have
reason.
EMS.
Well, I'd hope that
Plus the fact that
the
if,
association would work it out with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I've tried working it out with them, but this was supposed to come back to the residents before it was
I think
finalized.
they said it's gonna come. It still has,
It
this
was
hasn't been
supposed to come
finalized.
It was supposed to come to the residents.
That's why we put it on the board.
I haven't heard anything about it in the 2 years that we've been proposing all
No,
this.
the next step is to get the approval here of the landscape.
But a grass-only option is not an option.
The landscaper comes out, we.
So they got another parking space, it's already been paved, they got enough now.
Yeah, it's already been budgeted.
Yeah,
I can understand, he's
Yeah.
willing to
We need to
donate
make a
work,
motion.
I don't wanna argue about
time
it.
to keep it clean.
Mr. President, I
You're
was
gonna
like,
have some
oh,
lot
what's
of
the
problems
purpose?
here.
I mean, we heard it,
I
but
guarantee
You know,
it.
we
I'm
haven't.
not
And the
getting-
sand and the salt is gonna kill these things right here because they use salt in that area there. And that's where we put our snow in the winter.
It's
Okay.
budgeted, I don't know. whether
Okay.
haven't
We need to
got the-
move on.
yeah, I know.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
We're just discussing.
No, no.
I certainly hope people don't sabotage it just because they're not happy with the plan.
I'm not trying to sabotage anything, I'm just giving my concerns about this area.
Because your area, I think is yours. and it's the-
Well, we've got,
Okay.
this has been a budget.
This has been budgeted
Yeah,
for
and I
3.5
guess
to 4 years.
we really
5 years,
haven't,
actually.
we haven't really approved, we haven't got to the approval process, right? So,
You mean for this plan?
for this
We
plan.
have the budget.
Right, yeah, yeah.
The
So I-
budget's for
I-
$25,000.
I think that's what the homeowners association is asking is, since they presented this, I believe they're saying, is this something that we can move forward with?
So do we, that's what I could think the question at the table is, do we need to put forward it's not gonna hurt to put forward a full motion.
Yeah, if you are going to approve they've chosen Chura, and if you agree as the board to go forward with that landscaper and the plan as
And
presented.
somewhat a fluid plan, hopefully
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
everything out with
Work
all the
this all out.
residents.
Yes.
So that's,
And perhaps maybe you could limit it at this point to that budget that
Yeah.
that's
I guess that's what
presented
I'm
in
hearing,
this
so-
plan. Yeah.
Let's do that, so we don't.
I'll make the
A
motion
little extra
to
money.
hire Shura.
yeah, well, I
As-
guess before, while we're talking about that, Mr. Powell was mentioning about possibly including some top dressing on the road edging and stuff that's gonna need to be done. So Mike, what would be educated?
Quite frankly, I think the amount's so small, the administrator and I can work and roll whatever percentage into the 2018-19 road paving budget
Okay.
very easily.
Okay, great.
And you can make it not to exceed your 25,000.
Yeah,
It's
not
already
to
been
exceed the
allocated.
full budget
Yeah.
for the full plan.
Okay. Going back to your.
Sure.
If you
looking
make a
at you.
motion, put something in there that there's a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
To hire Chura as the landscaping contractor out of budgeted funds not to exceed $25,000, allowing flexibility
With our engineer.
with both our engineer and the Oak Island, what's your committee called?
Homeowners Association.
Homeowners Association.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Dumont, second by Sikowitz. Any other discussion?
Wasn't the asphalt part of that $25,000?
Uh,
The parking was part of that $25,000?
I don't believe so. I think that was,
I think Mike looked, we shared an email between, yeah.
that was picked up in the road, wasn't it, Mike? Part of the road paving?
Yeah, it was part of the road paving
The
contract.
asphalt paving is part of that $25,000.
Believe it or not, I wrote a note here to myself, review that exact item, because it was added to the road paving to take advantage of the unit prices, but I don't believe the parking itself was to be rolled into the paving program. So I was going to get with the budget and then work with the administration regarding that, especially the treasurer. I can't answer that because I had the same question myself.
Yeah, it's been addressed to Mike Condick, and he was to reach out to you, and I
Correct.
don't know where that conversation is.
We didn't have that conversation yet.
Okay. And he indicated that, you know, to give us some
2,000.
guidelines.
He's only seen 2,000 from you.
Yeah, 2,000,
Okay.
what he thought. So.
So I just wanted to make sure that it was delineated out, and I didn't remember.
So what would, I mean, just out of a guess, what would the asphalt price be for that amount that was done?
I apologize, I can't just
Okay,
bring that up.
okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of plays into what's
How
available
close to the
for
budget
landscape.
are you right now?
We're under 20. So there's
Under
5,000,
20?
yeah.
So a little over 5,000 maybe?
That's fine.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is it gonna be $6,000-7,000?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, we can work with that.
So we should still be okay with everything then.
Correct.
We asked each landscaper to keep a $5,000 contingency for this kind of stuff, is what we did.
Okay.
You know, that was our idea.
Yep.
So I guess
You picked an
Great
exceptionally
job
good
keeping it under
contractor.
budget.
it still should be within budget then.
Personal experience.
Awesome.
Yes. we
Played
will.
baseball with him for 20 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay.
That's good.
I think we're still gonna be within budget, so
Cover
roll
both.
call vote, please.
Well, I'd like some
Okay.
additional conversation.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
I would hope that the homeowners association and the resident who throws in his point of view can work out something. You have a gentleman there that's willing to clean up stuff that is gonna fall off trees and everything else. So I would hope some sort of an arrangement between your association and that person can work out something. He's willing to give his time to the community there, which he lives in. So I would hope they're all open-minded enough to work something out between them. That's all I have to
Residents tend to
say.
share it,
Well,
their
it's-
responsibilities. So
It's an
let's-
important thing to the whole community on Oak Island. They're all tucked right in there, you gotta be neighbors, you gotta get along. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Good
roll call, please.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Medro,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Malish,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Now we're finally on new business. 22 minutes before our second call.
There you go.
We're not
Yeah,
doing
we can
that.
get through. Okay, resolution to approve designated signatories to village funds. And since our previous administrator is no longer here, we need to designate our new administrator to be able to sign on to village funds, so I don't have to sign checks every couple weeks.
And if you approve this, I'll go to the bank tomorrow morning. Get it taken care of.
So,
So I
Do I
make
need
a
a motion?
motion, oh,
yeah,
no, you've been giving them.
Sir.
It's under A if you want to see.
so, yeah,
Just make the
it's
re-
motion to
resolution.
be it resolved that Village Wolverine Lake designates Mike Smith as the role of administrative clerk, as an authorized signatory to the village bank accounts, Chase Bank, joining Mike Conduct, treasurer Brian Edreal, village president, and John Scott, village president pro tem. Is that your
So
motion?
moved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Dumont, second by, we'll give it to Malik
Yeah,
again.
go.
I'll give it to Ed next time. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, we need a roll call, probably.
Yeah, you do.
Roll call vote on it, sorry.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
All right, thank you, finally. Item B, which is second reading of the adoption of ordinance 76A-4, which was for the watercraft amended ordinance for, which we introduced last month, so.
Just so we're clear, there will be a couple of amendments to this for some new laws that are coming up, I think.
Yeah, but they'll be covered.
They'll be covered under this.
Under the section.
Because we're adopting,
470,
yeah, adopting what the state has done, and the state just made a couple, as of January, a couple
Amendments to the
to
amendment.
the DNRs,
Yeah,
yeah,
the new
exactly,
DNR laws.
exactly. So.
Okay. So with that,
You need a.
Motion to
a motion
adopt.
to accept ordinance 76A-4
correct.
as presented in
Motion
our
to adopt.
packet.
Yep, that's a motion by Mr.
I'll
Malik.
second it.
Second by Mr. York. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on, section reading adoption ordinance 85-A11, which is the fireworks amendments that, to conform with the change in state rule, I believe. Correct, John?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, what it does is it reduces, it does take away a couple of what I thought was kind of silly holidays for fireworks. It limits them to certain ones. July 4th is still a good one.
And increases some of
Mother's
the
Day
days.
out?
Mother's Day is out.
Oh.
But Father's Day is
tradition.
okay.
President's Day is out. There's a couple of other ones that are out, but I think it limits it to 4, I believe.
Yeah, and it expands some if they
It
occur on the
expands-
weekend.
Around July.
Yeah.
So you can have a
It'll
lot of.
actually,
4th.
if July 4th falls on a weekday, it actually goes to the either preceding or after the holiday. So it'll go to that Friday or Saturday. There are certain, I mean, it was common sense, but it's not very common anymore.
Yeah.
So we have to actually throw it out. So they did a really good, I think they did a really good, super job of doing this. And it's much more palatable, I think, for other residents.
They shortened the time to, I believe, from like midnight to 11:45, so 15 minutes less.
Okay, so we need a motion
Motion to adopt this
to
ordinance.
adopt ordinance number 85-A11 Fireworks Safety Act, MCL 28.451.
That's it.
One more point that I can bring out about that is that there's a new fine, and of that, by state law, 500 of it, of the $1,000 fine will go to the police department, to the village.
So they're gonna be
Only
writing
one that
tickets.
actually Directs the money back to law
Exactly, so that's
enforcement.
why I wanted to point that out. so.
That's great.
Wow,
All
Sorry
the
to
fines
interrupt.
go to general.
nice.
I'm going to get those.
Yeah.
Got a little incentive.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor.
Yep, that's a motion by Malik.
I'll
We have a
second it.
second. Second by
Second
Mr. York. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're moving now. Resolution declaring April as Fair Housing Month.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it again.
Motion by second by Mr. Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Recreation Council dissolve the historical team, and Monique spoke on that earlier.
I make a motion to accept the explanation given by Monique McGee on dissolving the historical team, with her keeping her fingers in the pie if needed.
Yes, that's very, very good idea, so. And also Chuck Cardinal was on that committee, and Ginger Nicolai, Ginger Nicolai also, so. And, my
And Jerry
significant other,
Mikowski.
so.
I
Was on it,
think
short-
it would be nice if the council sent a little letter to those people for
Absolutely, yeah.
what they've done for this long, and a thank you.
They put a lot of work into consolidating a lot of
Do
stuff.
we have a
so-
second?
And it's good information.
Do we have a
I've used it,
second?
As you know, up
Yeah.
at the state.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
So anyhow, yeah, appreciate all the work and time, effort put towards it, so. I guess, that was a motion by Mr. Malik, second by Mr. Senkowitz. So, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Monique.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, resolution approving, recommendation to approve Oakland County Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area Memorandum of Understanding.
Yes, this is,
That was a mouthful.
SISMA is working with us. We are a member. What they're stating is that we need to actually formally approve the memorandum of understanding. Things have changed since Jennifer last reviewed it for another municipality. What they're asking for is just merely a $250 donation. And they need to you need to approve an official member to the board, which they said would be the administrator. So that's what you need to do in this motion. What this group will do is help us to get and obtain grants if we have to help with Phragmites and other invasive species that are in the village. They're actually, I've already gotten on board with that because we clearly have problems with that, as most of the surrounding communities do. And any other type of products that we have going on, they can help us determine the areas and how to mitigate a lot of those things and the proper procedures for handling those, for what the DEQ states that we have to do, and how we handle those things. They can partner with us, and we can partner with other communities when we try and help with process for treatment and then for actually cutting down or whatever we do, and there's a full process. And the representative from SISMA is going to meet with myself and Andy tomorrow to go through the village. And this is kind of one of those steps, is to become a part of the membership, so then that can help with grants and other funding mechanisms, and to also, they're requesting that you just have a donation of $250, which helps with keeping the group alive, so, and then to name
Do
you
we
as-
need a motion for that
Yes,
250?
yes, if you want to do that. You don't have to, that's just a suggestion.
I would make a motion that we donate $250. That's a good cause.
It
And then
sounds like
approve
it's-
the whole
I
memorandum.
totally agree with that one.
I'll second that, if I could.
Motion by Senkowitz, second by Scott.
Well, in discussion, we missed the March 23rd activities for the
Yes.
boat washing station, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, what they told me was that tomorrow is the first meeting, so if I'm approved as a member, I can actually attend the meeting tomorrow at 11 and be full on.
You've been
jump
able to
in.
do it.
So,
Would this, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Would this include a discussion on a hot water boat station? The water board had been chasing that, just
I
so
was
you
gonna bring that
know,
up,
keep
yeah.
your ears with them.
I can keep my ears about that,
Or
yeah.
possibly
Chasing that
grants.
down with
Possible.
the local gendarmes at the DNR down here.
Yeah.
And we missed a grant. One lake up north got $182,000 to build a hot water wash.
But you know, it's funny, I'm on the Great Lakes all the time.
Yeah, they're
There's
very
nothing.
rare.
There's nothing.
Well, they
There's not even
really
a
tightened the
power-
rules up.
If you
as
can
far
take,
as
you want to take a garden hose, go ahead. But
Washing, yeah. They tightened the rules this year,
Yeah, they're just
As far
starting
as
them this
washing,
year that it's changed. so.
making sure there's nothing coming out of the lake.
the sad thing is we've already got the problem.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're about
Yeah,
10 years behind
Yeah,
time.
exactly, so. Okay, so we have a motion.
Maybe not the next one.
Motion to, what, donate
Then
$250?
to agree to the
And agree to
memorandum
this.
And agree to the memorandum,
and
and to appoint, or
administrator.
administrator. Yeah,
Give
so-
them another hat.
Representative.
Yeah, getting many lately. Roll call vote, please.
Malik,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Dubon.
Yes.
One last question to the administrator. Are we planning on having something done this year?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, moving
Thank you.
along. Item G, recommendation from Park and Rec Board to allow Parks and Recreation to accept the Veterans Memorial Committee as a subcommittee of the Parks and Rec Board.
Yeah, we had actually a second follow-up meeting this last Monday in follow-up to another meeting that we had to cancel or move ahead because of posting. Not necessarily the front office's problem, we're not sure, it doesn't matter. So we met on Monday as a committee. And there was a couple things that occurred. There's a realignment of the committee itself. The large driver of this whole concept, Debbie Melvin, I think she's still out in the audience, the last I saw. Unfortunately, or fortunately for her, with other things coming up in her personal life, she asked to step down as the chair. So the committee appointed Kelly Sicko to be the new chair, and she can't make it tonight. So, and as everybody knows, she's the past chair of the Park and Recs board. So she comes with a lot of good, if you would, connections as well as a good managerial background. There was a second and affirmative, by the way, that was all unanimous by voice vote for every member that was there. There was a second and affirmative motion carried and reintroduced at Monday's meeting to reaffirm that the board, as it did in the past report to council, prefers Site 1 along Glengarry, subject to soil testing, as compared to Site 2. They've looked at this again. We've taken pictures during the winter freeze-thaw, and Site 2 would be underwater. That particular portion of the park cannot be walked at that time, so that also occurred at that meeting. And then, of course, I passed around the rendering that was done by Chris at Carlisle Workman, paid for by a donation from Mrs. Melvin. And this is the first rendition, but what the objective of this rendition was to simply do one thing: establish the base, affordable but beautiful design that we could put in either place depending upon where it is. But again, the board really would like to see this done because of access to the extended parking lot and et cetera. And so what would go on beyond this is additional raising of funds as people come forward and it meets, let's say, the design and eye configuration of adding certain additional items. It's hard to say what the end cost is. That's going to be the next step. We'll have to get some engineering done, and then we'll have to take the engineering out for bidding. Rough guessing is we're trying to keep it in the 50 to 60,000, and rough estimates is that probably better than 50% of this is going to be done through contributions or more. An example would be those 5 flagpoles. We're going to, the committee will be out seeking 2,500 plus flag costs for each one of those poles. So that would be 5 times 2,500. You're talking, 12,000 there. Bricks would bring in additional monies, and so what they tried to do is, and I think it was done successfully, sort of split up the design so that you had specific items you can go out and raise funds for. I don't know if there's any comments that you want to add, Debbie, to that in representing the board?
No, I think
Or-
we would still
or
like to
Mark?
work with Bricks R Us, and feel that under the Parks and Rec, that, because it's in the park, it would make sense just to have everything in Parks and Rec and the memorial. And, you know, we're gonna keep fundraising and try to get this done.
And that was a discussion, another reaffirmative vote that the subcommittee, for reasons no other than being aligned with a piece of what is the master plan, is to become part of the Park and Rec subcommittee, as compared to an ad hoc committee to council, to move them to become a subcommittee to Park and Rec. So council will have to release its relationship and move it from an ad hoc committee of council to a subcommittee of Park and Recs.
I'll move that recommendation.
Sounds good.
I'll second.
Motion by Doohan, second by York. I don't have a problem with that. I think everything's finally starting to go in a great direction. I mean, starting to make some real progress, and it'd be nice to move forward, so.
Is the committee still considering the selling the bricks that they, because nothing
Already
stated
set
in
up.
any of this, that's why I didn't know.
No,
Okay, that's, just wanted to make sure, because that was a topic for raising funds, you know,
Yeah, that
way
among,
back when,
among
right.
other ways
Okay.
to raise it.
Bridge flag poles, et
Sure.
cetera, et cetera.
I will take donations. Maximum would be good.
Okay.
Get it done quicker.
So I'm sure that if that is the case, then the, probably have a subsection of the Parks and Rec funds would be towards going through the
Yeah, we probably have to be
Memorial Committee.
budgeted, for, and that will be
Be
part
a
of.
different budget
Yeah, It just
section.
makes more sense to put it under the liaison and under Mark's tutelage to make sure it's all done, all part of one budget as compared to in different places.
Okay, so we have motions, second. So any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, just
Yeah.
for clarification, the number 2 area is no different than any place else in the park. It's a low area that holds water. The water table in that park is probably 6 to 8 feet deep. So if it was level, it wouldn't have water, and just like the other little potholes in the park.
This was just about changing the committee
No, you
to a
mentioned about
subcommittee of the
standing
Park
water.
and Rec.
Well, there was
I
just-
mentioned that.
There was a mention about it, yeah, so that's just clarifying, so.
Oh.
You're still
The
scheduled
only
to do
reason the
soil
water's
testing.
there in the spring is it's, the ground's still
froze.
partially frozen.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's a low area, it's a little dish. But the natural water table is probably 6 to 8 feet, if not deeper.
Okay. Might be able to squeeze one more in.
Well,
I know, we're so close.
okay, we threw Jay in there. Is there any other update?
Yeah, we
I think
did
that
move-
was-
we moved
Okay.
Jay.
That was
All right, I just wanna make
We're on
sure-
H now, right?
I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure everything was covered, that's all.
Yep, so moving on
H,
to
yeah.
recommendation of the council to allow Parks and Rec Capital Expenditure Committee to review Phase 1 of the master plan for Claire Miller Park and move forward the following 5 items, subject to study and consideration by the Capital Committee. Signage, new concession stand, Miracle Field, Veterans Memorial, and playground equipment for 3 to 5 year budget plan.
We already have had that first round. We had sort of an introductory round on,
Last night.
yeah, last night we were here until I don't know how late. Again, put the committee together, discuss these items, and where there certainly is news to talk about regarding the Miracle Field. We, Mark and I, spent as well as Linda, about 2.5 hours in Southfield talking to the gentleman that did the 4th Miracle Field out of 300 in the nation. And Mark, why don't you take it over, if you don't mind?
So we made the trip down to Southfield to check out the 4th ever Miracle Field, the first in Michigan, created by Steve Peck. He basically started it himself with his own money, and so he didn't have any money coming in. It's a phenomenal achievement, and he has it going 7 days a week. In discussing all that with him and assessing all that stuff and getting a really good understanding of what he does to make it the experience that it is so valuable for those kids, their parents, and their families, and the volunteers, it became clear that we can't provide the experience. We can build the field, but we can't provide the sound system with the residents that we have being as close as they are, that creates the real baseball feel for these kids, that makes it so valuable to them and really does change lives. So we've come to the conclusion that it would not be effective to try and build a Miracle Field within Clara Miller Park. And therefore, we're not going to pursue membership with the Miracle League as well. One thing that we did gain from that, though, or a few things we gained, one, the surface that they use is phenomenal. It's very useful. It's permeable, so water goes through it. It doesn't puddle up on top of it, and it's exceptionally durable. So as we pursue other parts of the master plan, particularly the playground equipment and things of that nature, this is a surface that we're seriously going to consider. That though it is more expensive up front, it'll be very long lasting. It doesn't crack. It's ADA compliant, so it's something that we're really going to look into as a strong possibility. And then additionally, we were discussing some ideas brainstorming really about a miracle football field. Again, wouldn't really be applicable to Clara Miller necessarily, but is something that we're looking to talk to. I know Linda is going to consider talking to Commerce Township about, and then we might push, this is more of an individual thing, talking to Novi. This project is phenomenal. What they're doing is tremendous. I strongly encourage anybody to read more about it, to go to a Miracle League game. I fully intend to, because it is a very valuable service, and we need I would love to see something closer to home that we can offer for people in our area. And it sounds like a football field would really be a big draw, in Steve's opinion. So we learned a lot, and I came away, though, I wish we could have had the field. We can't, but I came away actually feeling better than I was when I went, just because I realized how great it is and what we can actually provide to more people in our community.
What do they have, 1,200 volunteers alone?
Yeah,
working
1,200
with
volunteers.
Because every kid needs to have
So-
help
And
and
he gets that.
wheelchairs and
So that says a lot about
braces
that,
and
too.
Just amazing to sit and listen to them.
And he's got all kinds of
He
age
has a
groups.
full-time job doing it.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
he
there
has a
7 days a
full-time
week.
job
He's got an
managing it.
office, and they've got adult leagues for kids for people who are still, can't fully compete, but are a little more competitive and able. And so he's just covering the spectrum of making things accessible and inclusive and creating a great experience.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, they really do
That's a
that.
good idea.
It was really something. Had the Tigers come out.
Thanks for enlightening us about the Miracle Field. As
we do
far as all the rest of the stuff on this,
I think it was just,
John, as far as everything else on,
Well, we
kinda
have
moved-
rescheduled the Park and Rec Capital Subcommittee for, was it May 13th? 14th. Yeah, May 14th. So we're gonna
So
come
you're gonna continue
and
putting-
go back
putting-
at this and start to chomp at it to figure
Okay.
budgeting,
Right.
and it'll integrate into what I believe might end up being our work session. Because we'll have more information. If you do, or the council wants to do a work session on the last item on the agenda
Mhm.
there.
okay. Okay, we're at the second call.
Did we have a motion?
I don't think we did, we didn't really need any motion on this, did we?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We're at the second call of the public, so, Linda?
Linda Champagne, 250 Oak Island. I'm going to put on my Commerce Township Parks and Recs liaison hat. They have completed their master plan. It was approved at the board meeting last month, so if anybody wants to take a look at what they're doing in their parks and their township, or our township with our 20% of their money, they can do that. Commerce Township Parks and Recs. We are launching a summer concert series starting Friday, July 5th, the last one ending July 9th, on Friday nights at the Richardson Center. There'll be bands and alcohol and music, and so it's going to be six weeks of those. So I'm hoping that we can work with Commerce Township Parks and Recs, get that information out to through our emails and things like that, put it on our boards. Since we are paying for part of it, we might as well enjoy a lot of it. It's right down the road, and I think the Richardson Center with the bathrooms and all the amenities there is going to be a great place to have it.
We're in Carson High School.
So I think that's all I have on Parks and Recs, actually, from Commerce. As the new president of Onwards and Upwards Community Enrichment Fund, we've worked with Julie Height, who is a website designer, and we now have a new website. It is up and running, although there are some changes being made to it as we're in the next week, but it is onupcef.org. It's really a lot more user-friendly. We'll be able to go on and take donations for the fireworks or for the scholarship. We're gonna be able to take volunteers for all of the Parks and Recs events or anything else, for the kids to be able to get their community service stuff. The scholarships that we offer to village residents for education, the online registration for that.
Can you give me that on up again?
onupcef for Community Enrichment Fund
Okay,
.org.
thank you.
So the information, I passed out a flyer about the upcoming cocks that are open. We had to switch venues because there was a neglect in getting Uptown. We ended up getting
On the dunes?
on the dunes, which is very cool because we also are getting all 10 of the simulators. So
Oh, nice.
at that dinner, we're gonna be having the simulators going so people can golf and do closest to the pin and longest drive and stuff like that while they're having their dinner and beverages. And so it'll continue the golf theme, and I think it's gonna be really fun as opposed to just standing around and drinking. Plus, if the, well, they can do both. But they also are gonna have they're hoping to have the axe throwing. Okay, open, which is in the back, if you've ever been to, on the dunes. They used to have the softball thing in the back, and now they're changing that over to axe throwing. So they're hoping to have this completed by June 1st, and they want to allow us to have a couple lanes for people to go try out axe throwing. So we're highly recommending you bring your spouse and go in there and do that.
Can you put the wife up against the
June
wall?
1.
I guess I don't want to get into that.
Saturday, June 1st. So I think that's about, I did want to ask permission from the village that what we'd like to do on our website is put the list of all the events that Wolverine Lake has and link it, or link to Wolverine Lake's Parks and Recs and their events calendar, so that people can actually, when they go on to hit the volunteer button on our menu, it'll take them there, they can pick an event, they can sign up to be a volunteer, and it will also be able to, we can also get their names and addresses, so Parks and Recs doesn't have to do anything, and we can send them out an email that gives them their hours that they participated and things like that. So I think it's gonna be a really cool addition, this updated thing. And by the way, again, Julie Height did it for an unbelievable price for us. She did a phenomenal job, and we can't thank her enough, so.
Miss
If anybody
Champagne,
needs a website,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Did your board also indicate that we'd do a 50C3 help for the veterans if we wanted to use your services under that auspices for selling bricks? Is that going to be able to be?
You know, I think we can certainly talk about that, there's no doubt about that.
We can talk about it at home also.
I know that that is one of our donations. I would like to see, if people would like, I would like to see that we can put that as a link too, to donate to that, although it's kind of it may be a little bit counterproductive because we do donate to the Veterans Memorial. And I don't know if we want people leaving the Onwards and Upwards page to donate to somebody else and not donate to our Community Enrichment Fund.
Of course.
But I think that that's certainly something that we can discuss and at least put a link
To help.
to the Wolverine Lake Fund. So, yeah, so I think that's it on that. Cool.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public?
The dunes.
We'll close the second call to the public. Oh, nope.
Don't forget to make your reservations
Okay.
for the golf outing or the dinner.
Larry Jones, 2570 Canal Drive. I just wanted to bring up what Ed said about the canals and that. They didn't want to spend any money because of the people that live on the canal that would fix up their shoreline or help with their shoreline. I was just wondering, like, when they come to Wolverine Drive and that, and Penny Lake, when they had all that, their mud there and weeds and the aerating, did they pay for that themselves, or? Did they?
Oh, you mean was the community paid for?
Yeah, there you go.
Share the wealth concept,
Yeah.
is that what you're?
Yeah. Or can we, the canals, can we block them off so people can't come down there? Just wondering.
Good question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Alrighty, we'll move on to item K, I guess, discussion on alternative funding options for capital improvements. Lakes, canals, roads, and park improvements. I know we've been trying to figure out how to budget for roads. And we've had some discussion. Edmund's had some discussion. We had some discussion at our goal-setting session about we know we shouldn't be pulling out of the general fund money to pay for roads. However, the road funding hasn't been there to be able to afford to keep the roads up the way we anticipate. So that's been one of the things we've really been looking at lately, is trying to how to figure out how to balance out our budgeting process to be able to afford a road program down the road. And we're not the only community in that issue. A lot of other ones are having the same issues, so.
In regards to capital improvements, my goal to bring forth to this next upcoming budget cycle is to establish a 6-year capital improvement plan. So I've been communicating with the departments and seeing in Parks and Rec and other groups and trying to see so we can think long-term, forecast for those things, budget for them, put them in an actual approved plan as part of the budget that we know so you can fund properly. You can possibly, like you were stating, extend out the road funding if that is the desire. Put parks in there, put capital improvements as far as for buildings, for other ancillary items, for vehicles, for whatever it might be, if you need DPW equipment, whatever it might be, that you have that in a long-term plan so you know when you adopt it, you're budgeting for those items. So that kind of ties into some of that, and we can, of course, continue to discuss it at a work session further, if that is your desire.
And
Just a suggestion.
I know
Maybe we should
we were
make
looking
that
at possibly bonding some issues too, possibly like maybe the parks. I mean, if you look at the master plan that was adopted and approved, there's an awful lot of money that would have to go into that to make that park project the way it's master planned out, even in 20 years. So how do you budget for something like that? So, I mean, there's options that we might choose to look at to try to figure out how to be able to budget for that, so.
Well, we look
There's
at
got to be
Commerce.
priorities.
Right,
Priorities.
yep, absolutely.
You sit and you talk to Commerce, and when they put together the park for the young lady, I think they, Linda, do correct me on this number, wasn't it 240,000 or so on DNR grants for her park?
Scarlett?
For Scarlett's Park, some number like that, as well as 100 plus for the toilets, which is really what we should refer to on that concession stand, because the concession stand is less than a quarter of the overall building structure. It's new toilets, it's storage, and a lot of other things. But what else went on over there that was so, I know, the bridge. The Ralph Wilson Fund, who used to own the Buffalo Bills, that gentleman left behind a pool of money dedicated to the Detroit area, southeastern Michigan, for improvements of parks, and to Buffalo, to the improvements of parks. And they have a large amount of money to spend, and I think $2 million plus went into the bridge going over M5. So, those monies are there, and I believe Michael is gonna go spend 2 days incarcerated in a building with SEMCOG to learn about and integrate with southeastern Michigan individuals for grant funding.
Great.
So I'm excited to say we'll find the money.
Part of, with that, is when you have the capital improvement, a lot of these grants are matching, so you
Yeah.
need to have an established budget, and because they're gonna ask, what are you allocating? So that's part of that process.
Yeah.
I noticed that, I don't know how many people get over there, maybe for a concert, but the facility that Commerce has for soccer, the CW3 field, that's probably about 4 or 5 times the land area that we have. They have a play structure there, and they have 2 porta potties. No concession stand and no toilet.
Well, that's
But
Scarlett's Park that we're talking
the other
about.
thing I wanted to bring up is on these alternative, I've got the floor, please. These alternative funds, we have to take care of the stuff that we already have. There's a big button on the Benstein pathway.
Boardwalk.
The boardwalk.
Yeah.
What is it, close to 30 years old, and it's, other than replacing spindles and wood, that thing needs to have some attention to it this year. And I know there's some products out there, but I'm not sure what you can use and what can't be used over a lake. And also, the Oak Island Bridge too is getting a little scruffy looking and starting to dry out. And I think that was done about 5-6 years ago. But those two things are.
I think you brought that up at the goal setting session too, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
I'm reminding again.
Well, that Benstein Bridge, by the way, is an example of grants. When those two guys.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of money
slammed
for that.
through that, it was a 1/3, 2/3, so.
Right, yeah.
$200,000 was given by the DNR.
Yeah, I don't think we would have built it without them,
No, absolutely.
especially when you had to drive pile 35 feet.
Okay, well, I guess we'll move along to set topics for the work session.
Did we get,
Or do we need anything?
I don't know, did you add them? No, okay, I guess my
I just
pencil
was wondering
scratching
if you
is.
wanted to add those two, or just keep those at a future.
Oh, the canals? When we talk about canals, roads?
Anything.
You mean to the work session coming
Yeah.
up? I thought, that's what I had suggested earlier, is that it sounded like the conversation, we were drilling down pretty deep on what the constituents was of a asphalt road. But I think if we look, maybe in the interim, Michael, maybe we can break out of the budget the major items that we know we expend money on. You know, we know additional pension monies are put away, we know the roads are out there, the possibility of park improvements. I don't know what other capital items, you're pretty well budgeted, aren't you? You
I
have a
have a
3-year goal.
five-year forecast,
Right.
and there's a couple of actually what I consider large item tickets. One of them is gonna be a police boat.
Sorry, I was on my way. One of them is a police boat. Believe it or not, the boat we have is 20 years old already. And we need to start considering replacing that. I have that in next year's capital outlay. Not this upcoming budget year, but the following, it would be the 2021 budget for a new police boat. Other than that, obviously our reoccurring vehicles and things of that nature. I think we're pretty well set. I just, and I'll give you an update on my turn, but as far as that goes, the major costs, I believe, are covered now. And our budget for a boat would be starting in 2021, so.
Yeah, and as a department, as well as a DPW, you do that directly with the administrator.
Mhm.
So I think, at least in my mind, whatever we would discuss at the work session is that macro umbrella, to get an idea of what else should be included and thought about. We already have it in the goal session. I mean, the Benstein Bridge would be one of those. When do you plug that in? Does that make sense? I think that's what we were trying to get at on that.
So do you want to have a work session and discuss those things?
Yes. I would prefer it to be done in a work session. I don't know about the rest of council, that's just me.
No, I agree. We throw everything on the table and some
Yeah, we have our.
priority 1, 2,
Yep.
3, 4, 5, 6.
We have our
And-
goals, we have those
Trying to
done.
figure out how much money we're gonna have to throw at it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when,
Right,
right? I mean, that's the big thing
And-
right
and
now.
And to reiterate that like I said, we gotta take care of what we got, and I think roads are gonna be a big
When do we
priority.
start working on the budget?
May.
May.
Okay, well, then we need to have that before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It's a good opportunity.
Good.
So I think
Is that gonna be a budget session or just
May will be budget session,
okay.
right?
No, but if we make that in the next work session,
We'll have an
we'll
idea.
have an idea
Yeah, we'll
going
throw
into
a
the
little bit
Into
budget.
the budget
everything in
session,
there.
yeah. Well, that's what our topic will be for work session for this month then, huh? All right.
Michael,
Yep.
something for purchases?
The purchasing policy.
Yes, so I noticed as I was going to approve a purchase order, I realized that the voters in Wolverine Lake did approve the charter amendment, proposal number 8. where the old language read that purchase and sale of all materials, supplies, and public improvements costing more than $1,500 must be approved by council and subject to bidding. And then if the proposal was adopted, it would eliminate this threshold and then allow council to establish a new threshold by resolution. So that was last November 2018. I realized council never adopted a formal resolution. So I looked at some prior other municipalities and their purchasing threshold, and I believe I'm suggesting $2,500 as an approval, so we can move on with our budget, as in the sense that these are budgeted items.
They're budgeted funds, right.
So let us, you've directed us that this is the budget you've approved. We as departments, police, DPW, administration, treasurer, we can move forward without coming to council that next month and have to wait that long interim. To do those things, I established another thing in there. For general maintenance and repairs, that the DPW leader and police chief are authorized to approve repairs and maintenance. I increased theirs of up to $3,000, because sometimes theirs are a little different. Higher level items, I don't know, transmission, whatever it might be.
If I can, and there's also, I think, in there an emergency thing that we
Yes.
can.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that you have the ability to do those things without having to wait a month, because, we're on those things. I did state some other items in there that, of course, we want to make sure that the departments and the boards are really meeting with us to make sure, and Parks and Rec have made a really great concerted effort to do that for next budgeting, so we know a lot of those things, and so if we're seeing any unbudgeted items this year, we should really be evaluating those and adding them in to the next year, because if we're seeing it might be a consistent yearly thing, add that into the proposed budget. But I would suggest capping it at $2,500. I feel that's a good thing. We would still let you know, of course, in the payables, and I can send out a memo or whatever it is that, hey, we had to do this, we had to purchase this item, so you do know that we're taking it out of which line item. And then there would be that checks and balances with everyone with those things. So that's just kind of, I tried to put in a thing, of course, we would always go out to bids if we need to get those, but we can also, this affords us the ability to get the best quote from a reputable vendor. Negotiated purchase from one or more. If we have a designated vendor that we always work with, we can work with them and we don't have to go out to bid. Or just doing the general telephone, written, or catalog quotes that you can just kind of get, just an informal one like I did with the sign. You kind of reach out, you already have those contacts, so you can just reach out to them automatically. I wanted to add in that little local buy-in that you always want to try and help your surrounding communities if you can. You don't have to, of course, because we're here and there's not necessarily those, but kind of the surrounding communities to help them be with ensuring that local vendors have, showing that we're trying to help them as well. And then, of course, with auditing, the administrator and treasurer will randomly audit the purchases and document that, assure again that the purposes and the best practices are used. So I guess that's that. I don't know, there might be I put in there, and it can, of course, be taken out, that the boards can as well, like if Mark as Parks wanted to purchase something that was within, again, the allocated funding, that he would come to the administrator, the treasurer from the board, state we want to do this, and we say it's in your budget, we approve that purchase. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, that's up to you as a collective if you want that process, or for them to still come forward to board or whatever, so.
I think it makes it much more efficient, Michael. You hire an administrator, we have a treasurer. I think we can trust you to decide if there's a budgeted item, whether you can approve it without having to
and then
take that through the council.
I forgot that I did add in there, and/or the release of budgeted interdepartmental line items. So that was, I wanted to add that little interdepartmental line item, so if you have because when you approve a budget, you're approving the holistic budget.
Right.
So you have, as long as at the end and the auditor sees that you balance, you can, you can approve that, will come forth to the next council that there was a budget amendment, that this took place, but we should be able to, if something was a little over that 1 year, we can pull from another fund to help, as long as it's within reason.
Just like our water board member who wants to go to, at his own time for a weekend, we were $85 short or something in that.
Yes.
Okay. All good stuff.
I
So you
think
need a motion.
Well, we actually have.
You just did it in 1 second.
This is what we really kind of discussed, right, moving forward with previously, so.
Yeah.
This is just formality now that we're going to adopt it, I think, so. That was a motion by Scott, second by Dumont, was it?
No, it was a motion by Dumont, seconded by Walter.
Oh, okay.
Is that the formal Did you read the formal? No.
I didn't know if that was formal language you wanted.
Your motion, Scott.
Your motion passes. Just call for the
Resolved that the
vote.
village
Call for the
Warrant
vote.
Council does hereby adopt the village
We
Department
talked
of
about
Workforce
this
and
many
Rental
times.
policy
Yep,
as
okay.
written.
9:30.
Okay, there we go.
There it is.
Well, can I have a roll call vote on this, please, then?
Dumont,
Yes.
Mount,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. And I think you did a great job putting that
Yeah,
together.
very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really.
Mr. President, I just wanted to point out too, that the way this was all done with the charter language, you can always change this as well, the amounts, if they don't, if you feel they're
Okay.
too high, too low, whatever. By resolution, it's easily changed.
Great, super.
Too many
Okay,
office
I
parties.
don't believe we have any pending business, right?
That's it?
Update from the chief.
Real quick, I got a couple of things. The WatchGuard video, the automatic download was installed and is working beautifully, so that's a good thing. We are currently under the Michigan State Police lien audit, which is a very complicated and in-depth tri-annual, every 3 years, audit. And Sergeant Morosco and myself, as well as the records clerk from Wixom, Caroline Shave, are taking part in that. I'm also in the middle of my budget process. If you notice, a budget amendment for the Marine Patrol, we extended our hours last year in through the month of September. If you remember, the Water Board asked to look into that, and we did that. Along with that came an awful lot of court time because there were a lot of citations written last year. So we did a budget amendment, and actually this year we're going to increase the budget to cover that additional time. So we also have a new Marine Patrol officer, hopefully adding one next month. She's currently in the Marine Academy. It's our reserve officer, Ann Grunwald. And that'll be a very good addition out there too. Next month during our May meeting, I'm hoping to do our annual awards for a police officer. We do have a life-saving award for Officer Setsko. He was able to save a gentleman's life last week, actually. Unfortunately, the gentleman, he made it to the hospital and spent another 4 days spending time with his family, very alert and coherent, and then had another massive stroke. So he did pass away, and the funeral was yesterday. But the family was very complimentary and very, very appreciative of Officer Setsko, and I do want to still recognize him. So, and there's some other ones that are going to be recognized too, but next meeting is May, and that falls during our annual police week. So I thought it'd be fitting that we identify them and recognize them next week, or next month. So that's it for me.
Chief, anything new on Officer, the young lady? Is she gonna come back? You said you were gonna talk to her.
It's not good news.
Pardon?
It's not good news.
No?
It doesn't appear, they're still trying to get back here.
Okay.
But he did not get the position that he wanted at that time. He's now looking to transfer anywhere down in southeast Michigan. So they really do want to be down here. They have listed their home, and they want to be back. So I'm not holding my breath, but at the same time, we're going to start.
Keeping your fingers crossed.
We're going to start the application process and see
Right.
where that goes. We can always make the adjustments as needed, so.
Well, you and the council was high on the fact that, she was familiar with.
She's a great officer, and we'd
Yeah.
love to have her back.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, things didn't work out in the way we thought they were going to, but we're still working on it.
Thank you.
Can I ask traffic studies? I think that started a year and a half ago. Were they gonna do a traffic study?
For,
Commerce and-
yes, as a matter of fact, last month, I cornered the new chief operating officer, who happens to be a retired state police captain, and said, "Where are we on this?" And they said, she would find out and get back to me, and
Okay.
you know how that goes.
I think it's been,
Yeah, it's been,
7 or 8
the
months.
problem we have, again, I think it's gonna come down to being a between Commerce Township, Wall Lake, and Wolverine Lake. And I would actually like to, and I've talked to the superintendent about this, the school superintendent, I'd like to get them involved in that also. So, still waiting on results.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have no treasurer tonight. So we'll
Do we
bypass
know
that
where
until
he
next
went?
month.
I mean, maybe-
Update from Administrator Smith.
So we're not gonna spend any money.
He's having a wonderful vacation right now. He's enjoying his time.
Where'd he go?
New Orleans.
Mike, update?
So thank you. It's been a great month. Actually, tomorrow I think is my official month. Getting to know the residents, staff members, some of the boards that I've gotten to know. Thank you for, I guess, handling and, there's some bumps in the road along. We'll get through the new agenda. Thank you for agreeing to the new layout. It was kind of an afterthought that we realized we needed to change the tabs. So we're going to be working on that for the next May election, or May time. I just wanted to, again, remind everyone that there is a May election, so there will be, the precincts open May 7th, so before the council meeting. So that's good to know about that. Budget preparations, I would like to, like I stated, complete a 6-year capital improvement plan. I've been compiling a lot of data about different funding, and, we're going to have those tough conversations, I think, and how we lay those things out. Like Mr. Scott stated, I will be attending the conference in May 13th and 14th down in Detroit for SEMCOG for grant writing, to get involved with that, because as we missed the deadline this year. Most of the deadlines for a lot of grants are April 1st, so we'll be hoping to get that going, because it takes a lot of planning a lot of times to get it forth for next year. So we'll be on that. I've been reminded numerous times that we have to focus on the harvester operator and how we're going to handle that, and then get the position posted or investigate the option. I've been talking to some of the DPW and how the handling of that, if you want to hire an outside person or have one of the DPW workers incorporate that into the day. So that will be maybe a discussion item I might have at the work session as well, because I know we need to figure that out with the harvesting, as well as the soil erosion permitting. Jeff Rondo, I believe, who did it before, I think, he stated he can provide those services again. Maybe in this year, just because it's too close that we're going to have to start working on those soil erosions, that he'll continue. And then moving forward, we'll maybe have more time to investigate other people or other options. So I know those are two that people keep saying you need to, we got that soil erosion and harvester. General Village Hall sprucing up, I've been in initial investigations, I guess you can say in discussions with some staff and other people how to spruce up Village Hall. I'm just getting quotes. Again, I'll bring forth some of those things, just with general, just different things. I would love to have a seal back here, so when you're on, you actually know that it's Wolverine Lake. Little things like that, just general sprucing up. I noticed that we talked to Andy about which will be again part of the topic. I believe the sidewalk needs to be, there's 2 cones out there right now, and that's going to have to be addressed because we want to make sure it's safe down the ramp. So little things like that, and then keeping up with the flowers and other things like that. We'll have some of those discussions of just generally the outside looks amazing. So how can we kind of utilize some of those things in here? So in May, I will also be presenting a succinct and hopefully well-written RFP for the website. That's kind of my goal, is so then that will be tied into the next fiscal year. That's what I'm trying to. So if you do May, kind of give people about a month to provide stuff, and then it might take up to 6 months to develop a nice website. So we'll kind of tie into that offset where the county is stating that come July or December 31st, our services are
email servers,
they're all gone.
Yeah.
So I want to try and have it in place where it's in a seamless transition. So I'll be presenting that to you, along with just in general, we've talked about a lot here. I'm used to a lot of these things, so I'm trying to bring forth some new ideas. Stop me if I get too aggressive or whatever it is, whatever word you want to call it. I'm very detail-oriented and very much, I love plans, I love documentation, I love policies and procedures. So I am developing, hoping, working with Andy and the DPW to do tree maintenance plan, park maintenance plan, anything to do with hydrants, sidewalks, whatever it might be, any of the parks, and just have a general, so we have a great plan that we can work on, so like anyone who to take over, that it's a consistent plan, and it will evolve too, that there's a thing that, as new parks are added or new materials or whatever it is, how do we approach that? How do we need contractors, do we not? All those things to keep in mind when you're doing those things, but it's great to have that, so so residents know, council knows, staff members know, this is what we're doing, like I told Andy, January, February, March, where are you at, what are you doing? And then, so you know, so if a resident's like, hey, oh, it's April such and such, oh yeah, they're gonna start doing this now. We know that these things are going on, so it's good to have those written documents down. So some things forthcoming. This was my first parlay into some changes, so thank you for going along with the minor little bumps, but we'll get through it, so thank you.
Not bad for your first month.
Yeah.
No.
How did they get the electrical, or the lights in the DPW
Yeah.
garage and everything?
Yeah, they are actually going to finish the main bay. They did the police and they did Harvester. Now they're trying to do the main bay to update those as well. So we'll get LEDs in there as well. That's what they're
Good.
hoping to do. So
Great.
that's
Super.
it.
Okay, council comments. Scott?
Thank you. It was great for the Oak Islanders, and I think it was good for council to have the input that we had, Leanne, too. Thank you for that. You tend to go down tracks that are historically patterned, and to have be reminded myself that that's what the boards need to do. If they've got something, and I think they do, they need to bring it to this table for resolution. That's why we're reporting boards and not decision-making boards, if you would. I think we all know that.
Walt? Good. Ed?
Keep up the good work. I think what you're doing is, you're on the right track, and not everything is gonna get
Yeah.
a smile from everybody, but as long as you get more smiles than
Yes,
frowns, you're okay. One thing I wanted to ask Parks and Rec, I noticed on your agenda, are you gonna have a May garage sale this year?
After discussion and reviews of the last year, it sounded like it didn't go very well. They didn't get a lot of visitors, so we decided that it wasn't worth putting on for this year. And we decided that in January.
That's it. That's all I have.
I have a couple things. First, Administrator, I think what you've presented has been very great and informative for all of us. But you mentioned about the DPW and the cement out here. I'd like to also have you address, I don't know if we can go back to the contractor or anything on the building. All the kickboards that sit right at the cement, all the corners are totally starting to deteriorate, where the staircases are. You take a look, whether it's from the salt or just the weather in general. But, where two corners meet, the wood, it's a wood surface of some kind. But there's a lot of areas I noticed coming up the steps that need addressing. There's some cement pots that, near the staircase that need addressing. And then also, I'd like to comment on something you made mention to, Brian, about taking road money from the general funds. I know it's an issue, but the fact is, I don't think this community expects anything less than having good roads. And unfortunately, our budget is such that we have to tap into it to give the quality of what we have in roads. So, kudos to whoever's making it work, Mike and everybody else, because the citizens would be up in arms. You'd have a lot of them in here if the roads in this village weren't up to snuff. And that's all I have.
David?
Thank you, Oak Island HOA. You guys were very thoughtful and diligent putting that plan together. And now you get to see it come together. Thank you, Mike Powell, as always, for working with our citizens and working with them up on Oak Island. It's a small area, as our village is, and it's their backyard, literally. So, Administrator, they said nice things about you, so I won't.
You don't want to pile it on too heavy.
That's right.
No, it's too soon.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be short because it's been a longer meeting than I anticipated already, so we got a lot accomplished and looking forward to next month.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Motion by Segwitz, second by Malik. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Question about that, Mr. Who said it's,
Hey,
or who's checking?
How are you?